Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone. As you notice already, we have a little bit different format. We are abiding by more or less the current rules and regulations right now. So we are doing a remote podcast where we're trying out some new technology. So bear with us. This is not as smooth. Possibly we aren't set up the same way. So I'm looking forward to this though. But we have special guests on, John Michael Moore, and then also Ryan Ponist. We've got Nate Hale on. We're going to be kind of running this almost like like someone said, around the horn. So Eric Black's already saying howdy. I don't know if you guys can see that on the feed, but I'm going to go ahead and share this. Nate, if you don't mind going over our sponsors while I share it, and then we're going to do kind of like we always do. This will be a similar format overall as far as the show. So, yeah, Michelle says social distancing. That's exactly right. So, Nate, go ahead if you want to with our sponsors, please.
Yeah, so as usual, tonight's episode is coming to you thanks in a large part to Tinderbox at Easton Town Center, Columbus, Ohio. Just like a lot of shops around the country and especially in Ohio, a little bit different right now, different hours, carry out only, not hanging out. So if you're in the Columbus area or wherever you are, please go in, support your local brick and mortar cigar shop, get some cigars, help all those guys out during this time because it's going to be a little tough getting through for the next few weeks. So we still want to give a big, huge thank you to Steve and Brian at the shop for everything that they do there. Also, want to thank Altadis USA, our other sponsor, that we just locked up a second-year sponsorship a few weeks ago. So thank you to them. BS Cigar Company, we got the BS Gold, and we got more BS Silvers in. So we are fully stocked on the BS cigars. So we are glad to have everything in stock and ready to go there. Don't forget to check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. Got some cool swag coming out. If anyone's seen some of the shirts or hoodies that might be coming out and some of the other stuff that Steve's been working on for a while. If you're already a patron, you'll be able to get some of that swag before Steve launches the tiers and different sponsorship levels. So tell us what you're drinking, what you're smoking tonight. Hopefully you guys are not in the rain because my backyard's already flooding. So hopefully you guys are staying dry. And don't forget to like, share, and give us a review and any feedback or comments. We appreciate that. And then if there's any way you can help us out by donating bottles or anything like that, we greatly appreciate it. And get in touch with us or get in touch with Steve for more information on that.
Thank you, Nate. So I'm going to go ahead and try this here. I'm going to take Nate off of this list, just like he's a producer. Like I've got him over here in the garage here. So thank you, Nate. And we'll go ahead and get started here with an official one and acting like Nate's hitting the go button here for the podcast. Thanks. All right, gentlemen, you like that? Or you like, yeah, no. I like that. Because you got Rye the Cigar Guy all by himself at the bottom there. I like that.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Let me go ahead and I'll do my second opening. I like this. John was covered by your logo. Ha. I'll try to get him off of there a little bit. I can maybe take that off if need be. Let's see. We got people sharing it. Thank you guys very much. Avi says, Ryan, is that your bathroom setup? If you have kind of humidor in your bathroom, I want to see the rest of the house.
My bathroom is actually sponsored by Alec Bradley, as you can see back up here. Where we at here? I'm like a weatherman. I want to look off TV. I don't know where I'm looking at here. There we go.
Perfect.
No, actually, so ironic enough for this setup, I can't smoke at home unless I'm outside, and the weather's not great for that. So cigar shop that is closed down for the day offered to let me use their space.
Perfect.
So yeah, wonderful, just wonderful. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I had Brian offered to. He's like, hey man, if you just come back here, like we're closed at 6, and I was like, well, that's all well and good, but if I'd rather be able to like walk in from my garage if I'm going to be drinking. Like, I mean, this It's just a smarter move for me. But
Right.
all right. Let me get started here. And Dustin, you're logged on. I sent you a link if you want to be kind of in the background and waiting in the wings there. Just follow that link and we'll get you on there. Same thing with Jake Sanders. So, all right, let's get started here. I guess I really don't need to do that. Nate's walking around. I see in the background. All right. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to episode 110. This is going to be called Roll With It. We've got some special guests, John Michael Moore, and also Ryan Ponist with Alec Bradley. We've got a special cigar tonight in honor of the St. Patrick's Day that somehow, for whatever reason, with everything going on, it just kind of was forgotten. St. Patrick's Day was closed. Yeah, it's canceled. So, we're smoking the Filthy Hooligan tonight. If you guys can see that, let me do this here for those watching on Facebook Live or whatever. So there's that. And then we're going to be drinking, or at least I'm going to be drinking, and I also hope to have the support of Nate Hale and also Jake Sanders and Dustin Bovey. But this is kind of a good daily drink. We've done other Four Roses, but we have not featured this one. So again, we're trying to do things remotely. So if you guys are listening to the audio in the upcoming days, we did this remotely. So it's a little different feel. So you'll hear the microphones might have a little crackling. We're dealing with internet issues at times, I'm sure, throughout this episode. But we're happy to have everyone. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton. That they're the ones that kind of brought us all together in a matter of speaking. So we appreciate Tinderbox at Easton for the weekly featured cigar, the Filthy Hooligan from Alec Bradley, and then also Altadis USA. They give us the continued support. So Altadis, thank you, Josh and Josh Bentley and Paul Waller. We appreciate your support there. And then also BS Cigar Company. Now we have the BS Gold back, and we have all three sizes of the BS Silver. We're blending the gold with Plasencia tobacco through our friends at Alec Bradley. They hooked us up with an amazing manufacturer. And then also the BS Silver, which is Eric Espinosa. So thank you, Eric. He gave me a call today just to check on how everything's going. So this community, at least in the cigar side, I know the bourbon side and everyone else watching it, it's much the same. So we appreciate Eric and also the people at Alec Bradley and Plasencia for helping us out with BS Cigar Company. So
Absolutely.
We appreciate that. Four Roses is small batch. People are asking already on the live feed. We go live every Wednesday night. This is no exception. We worked this out. I logged into something called StreamYard. For those of you guys doing podcasts, this is definitely an option for you. We had a good trial run on Monday, but this is something that, in the current times we're dealing with right now, we wanted to do something that is kind of, I guess, respectful for the whole situation and everyone involved. Not only if all of us are feeling healthy and all that, we all get together in the garage, that'd be fantastic. But, again, the 6 foot rule and all this stuff going on, we wanted to be sensitive of it. So if you guys are listening on the audio, you don't have any problem with that, obviously, unless you're next to someone right now while you listen on your headphones. And if you are, I hope that they've lifted that by now. But if not, I would take a step back. No. Guys, how are you guys doing tonight over there? John Michael, this is your first time on the podcast, correct?
Yeah, first time on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. A little different than what we planned originally.
That's right. When we embarked on this idea a few weeks back, it was a different scenario. No one had this in mind. Exactly.
No.
It kind of just goes with the topic. Just roll with it, right? I mean,
yeah.
We're rolling with it to make sure that people still get this weekly dose of good nature fun, cigar and bourbon, and just general conversation. But yeah, things are good. I'm out on my back patio, so if you hear some birds chirping or trains going by or cars going by, apologize in advance.
That's all right. Actually, I don't hear any. I mean, you sound fine, so that's good. Ryan, how about you? You got the life of a road warrior with Alec Bradley, and you're home.
This is this is unprecedented. I joke around since I've got involved being a rep. Every year never seems to go as planned, and we hit this year. We got a lot of momentum going forward, a lot of great things, and I would have never called worldwide pandemic as being the reason why I was going to end up slowing down a little bit here come March. Especially, what's that?
You didn't predict that this year?
I did not predict that. No, and of all times, ironically, and a lot of people have sort of reached out to me and everything, like, of all times for it to hit literally what I normally say is my busiest weekend of the year.
Sure.
Seeing how things went, we were operating on almost like an hour-to-hour basis. How many times I would talk to somebody and everything's all systems go, and sometimes the next day, sometimes the next couple hours, even those plans changed. So we're rolling with it. That's what it's all about tonight.
That's fantastic. That's why I wanted to do this as the topic. I mean, it makes sense. I want to keep it kind of the first part, second part is going to be kind of the same kind of format, just a little bit different. I mean, this is definitely it feels weird for me. I mean, I've got an empty garage here, so it's definitely a different feel.
That's definitely different.
Yeah. So the first part, I mean, I want to let's dive right into the Filthy Hooligan. You guys are both smoking it right now, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So Ryan, this is something that I think 2013, is that right? Was the first year doing this? 2012?
The Hooligan or the actual the double barber pole?
The actual Filthy Hooligan, which originally was just
13, I believe, was the first year for that, correct?
And at that time, it was not a barber pole. It was just a Candela wrapper, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It was straight Candela.
And my understanding was it was over the original black market filler and binder.
Correct.
Whether that's correct. That is correct. Yes?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, it's changed, though. Is every year different, or is it just kind of it's evolved at this point?
Anytime you're dealing with a yearly release, there could be some subtle changes and nuance, and so to speak. So for the most part, we try to stay true to it every year. I would say with the double barber pole, I have not noticed drastic differences in them.
Right.
What was interesting enough was, the shamrock that we ended up doing last year and this year, the triple barber pole, I did notice there was a pretty decent change in sort of that profile. It was definitely a lot more mellow this year,
really,
in my opinion. But the Hooligan, for the most part, the double barber pole stayed pretty consistent.
Okay. This is my understanding. So you got a Candela Honduran wrapper, correct?
Correct. Candela and Jalapa.
Well, no, but the Candela is from Honduras, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have a Jalapa Nicaraguan Maduro wrapper along with it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then the filler is, do you know?
Honduran, Nicaraguan, and Panamanian, just like the black market.
Yeah, which is very unique, obviously, when you're telling people, like when I tell people about it. I mean, the tobacco from Panama is not typically used. So
no.
I don't know how many leaves are in there, but I mean, it definitely, I would imagine would give it a little bit different of a, overall profile.
And I think it's not something that you see all the time. Black market in general for an extremely long time was the king for us as far as number one bestseller overall.
Right.
And in the last year, the king is dead. Long live the king. But sort of in a phenomenon, Magic Toast came on board and actually sort of dethroned Black Market. But
right.
Black Market is one of those cigars that I personally, it's not my flavor profile. I do smoke a lot of it in, say, like the Punk, like the little petite Corona.
The original?
Yes, the original.
Yeah.
But when thinking about its success, sometimes I do wonder if that Panamanian tobacco, because I always say the black market to me has a very distinct flavor and aroma to it.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder if maybe there's something to that Panamanian tobacco that's what people respond to. And that's why it became the number one bestseller. That's why it had such longevity where, as recent as, the last year, every year we sold more and more black market since it's been out.
Well, the black market, I know the line itself, I mean, you had the black market, then you had the black market Esteli.
Correct.
Right. Which was actually, in my opinion, I definitely preferred, it's tough you can't compare them. They have the same namesake as far as the overall branding, if you will, but they're different cigars completely.
Yeah, absolutely. When we did the Esteli versus, when the Esteli was released as a spinoff of Black Market, we also released Prensado Lost Art as a spinoff of Prensado.
Which is a completely different cigar.
Right. And I felt that the main objective that Ralph and Alan had set forward on what they wanted to do with those line transitions was essentially we wanted to make sure people kept the same experience that they expect when they smoke those cigars, but they wanted that different flavor profile.
Yeah.
You know, and the Esteli, you know, I normally say where the Black Market, the original was more bolder and a little bit more simplified. You know, the Esteli is a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complex, and basically the exact opposite in my opinion, with the Prensado and the Prensado Lost Art. I thought the Lost Art was a little bit more, you know, we're going to sort of hit these couple notes and we're going to hold on to that for the whole thing, but still very bold with the flavor that I think that you get from them.
I got you. John Michael, what are you thinking of this? Have you smoked this cigar before, this year or another year?
No, I haven't. And you know, if you can't see on the screen there, so it is that double barber pole, and you know, and I was wrong when I first saw this. I was like, you know, barber poles, there's kind of a kitschy idea. So many times I feel like that companies put out like a barber pole, whether it be like a local tobacco company in New Orleans does or others, and I'm just, you know, most often kind of turned off by the idea, like I said, thinking it's kind of a kitschy thing to do.
Yeah.
Just because you think it's a marketing thing as opposed to a blending thing.
Exactly. But I will say I'm surprised how good this cigar is. It's really earthy. That's what I'm using to kind of describe it to me. It is mellow, like you mentioned, Ryan. I'm a big fan personally of the Alec Bradley Prensado. Steve, you know that I'm in and out.
Yeah.
I smoke them at the tinderbox and you know, buy them quite frequently. That's my favorite Alec Bradley cigar. So I haven't really branched out to a ton of others. But I'm really digging this. And like I said, I was completely wrong. You know, can't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
This is actually really quality, good smoke, despite the kitschy look to it.
I 100% understand what you're saying, you know, on a marketing level as a gimmick or whatever. And you know, clearly it's you know, I think that's the thing with the Filthy Hooligan and all the spinoffs and iteration that we've had is, you know, it's very marketing driven. You're using a seasonal time to sort of market basically a colored tobacco. You know, there's a lot going on with it. But you know, what I like about a cigar like this is, you know, I do think the cigar has legs and stand on its own when you take the marketing and the time of the year away from it. And the one thing I like about it is, you know, Candela, you know, there are some nice Candela cigars out there, and a lot of people will overlook them and will pass them over. And in my opinion, this is a great way to sort of dip your toe in, because the way the wrappers sort of intertwine with each other, not just physically, but not just physically, but hey, you got to give me one.
That's your one right there.
They sort of interact with each other. It really moots out a lot of the negative characteristics that people might think of with Candela tobacco. You know, essentially those grassy qualities, those sour qualities, they really get mooted out in this type of cigar. And I think you're left with, I've heard some people make the comment in some years past, and I really like that. And I could see where they're coming from, where they say it's almost like a green tea sort of note to it, which I think you can sort of get that a little bit, or maybe like a matcha, something, you know, Japanese.
Something Japanese.
Can you say that?
We could say that. We'll say.
No, yeah, I definitely think, though, you know, it is very earthy, right? And I don't know if that's just the Panamanian, if that's the Candela, it's the combination thereof. It is an extremely earthy cigar. It's a good cigar. I mean, if you took off the branding, took off the band, you could have this in stock in cigar stores year round, and you know, it's good enough to stand up on its own.
Well, I don't think enough companies are, you know, utilizing the Candela thing, because to your point, John Michael, is like, it's absolutely marketing heavy. I mean, it's released around St. Patrick's Day. It originally was an all green cigar. Now it's a barber pole. You've got further art on there that doesn't necessarily, besides the same black market on the secondary band, the original one looked exactly like it. It comes in that box that Ryan's showing right now, and it's got that. It's marketing. So And Candela, when you do a green cigar, it stands out on a shelf regardless. There's a couple like Fuente, you got LFD, you've got a handful of others. I mean, yeah, you went heavy on this completely. So you're right I agree with John Michael. It's something where I think that this cigar can definitely be overlooked by that. And that's fine. But I mean, I agree with you too, both on the fact that if you took the marketing off of it, you just had it a barber pole or whatever. You can't hide that part because that's the way it's going to smoke, right? That's part of the flavor. But you say earthy, I say a little bit grassy. Sure. There's a little bit of not really a little dryness on the back end for me, but it's also got a little bit of like the front of my tongue definitely is getting hit, but then the back of my throat here is getting a little drier. So it's actually, I don't know. That's just how it's smoking for me. And that's how it smokes for me every time I smoke it. I've had 2 or 3 this year since they came back out, and I have not smoked the Shamrock, which I'd like to do. But so far, it's just, it's a good smoke. I agree with you. It's a solid smoke. It really is. I mean, and I don't mind the marketing. I think the marketing's fun. We bought some. I know, Ryan, you had a lot of accounts buy more and more this year. And it's one of those things that I look at it, and I mean, with St. Patrick's Day more or less being canceled based on what's going on in the world today, I mean, we didn't sell many. We normally sell a handful around that time. We got them in before. We were going to sell some, possibly at the sales table or Smoking 10 event. I mean, it's just something that it's just all bad timing, much like a lot of things right now.
Honestly, with the way everything has developed with the whole COVID-19 thing, obviously that was a major damper. We've talked about, this cigar in sales meetings before because, we've done, as you said, the Filthy Hooligan, we've done since 13. We've done the double barber pole. I want to say this is its 5th or 6th year. Mm-hmm. And when there was some talk about, do we change it up? Do we do something different? It was one of those things where, I've kind of said to the company, I see a lot of limited editions occur in the cigar market space, as we all do. Mm-hmm. A lot of these companies, even like the new hot stuff boutique companies, the small batch guys, they come out with a lot of these limited edition products. And one thing, like I mentioned, I said, I've seen somebody come out with this product where it's crazy. The retailer can sell it at will. You could sell it at full market price. You got people calling you up, whatever. And then they go to do it a second time and no one cares, and it's not all of them, but you do see it a lot. And like I've said, the fact that this cigar has had this many years of following to it, I do think that a lot of it has to do with the cigar itself. I do think people do enjoy smoking. I do think maybe people don't want to smoke a Candela every day, but they do like changing up that daily rider cigar and saying, like, you know what, it's that time of the year. There's a good time to sort of dust one of these off and smoke one of it again. I do think that there is a certain following to the cigar because it, like I said, I do believe it stands on its own.
Well, there's not many out there that are once a year releases, to your point. I mean, you got Fuente that does it, and they're probably the best at that limited once a year release. You have obviously the Añejo. You have a lot of other limited production ones that they produced, and they come out at different times of the year. They're very scarce, but I mean, you do have that where they're very, very good at it. I'd say Pete Johnson with Tatuaje, for those that are into cigars and not as much the bourbon. I mean, Pete Johnson with Tatuaje, the Monster Series, he absolutely kills it. You know what I mean? Every year, and he's done really well on the marketing side of that. I can't think of a whole lot of others that do that on like the mainstream. Maybe some boutique ones, but I mean, you guys did this the first year, and then you kind of evolved it. Then you added the Shamrock, which I think is another, like, not only are you doing one limited release, now you're doing 2 at the same time. Right. Oh yeah, by the way, this is limited. This is more limited. Take them both. So it's a bold move, and I think so far it's worked out. I think this year is just a hiccup for all of us. I mean, this is
absolutely
unprecedented. So I mean, I think this is something that, I'm curious to see. I don't know if you have some retailers calling you and saying, "Hey, I need you to take some of this back."
I'm sorry, run with that again.
Do you have retailers that are calling you, or you saying, "Hey, with everything that went on, I'm going to be sitting on these"?
Not at the moment. That's something that we've talked about. I mean, there's a lot of question marks to everything going on right now. I do think, I did 5 events in 5 days, if you want to call them still events. It went down from 6 to 5 to maybe 4, depending on what you want to call an event or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was very hit or miss. And again, like I said, on how we were adapting to things going, in my territory with the way my events went and stuff like that, seeing the way things developed in a very short period of time. Like, for instance, I did an event in Ohio on Thursday, and, we did well, but we didn't do as well as we normally did. But, when we sat back and we said, what do we think is going on here? Thursday was the day where people in Ohio were getting calls. Hey, come pick your kids up from school. You have
right.
kids for 2-3 weeks now. So, everybody adapted with that, and then Friday I did the event. Everything seemed fine. Saturday, amazing event. And then Sunday we start seeing bars and restaurants close and stuff like that. And then that starts to put a damper, all these things happen where everybody's making adjustments, personally, not just as, well, I mean, us like anybody else, whether you're a cigar manufacturer, a cigar retailer, or whatever, we're all these businesses that have to sort of adapt to it. And as we're doing that, our consumers have to adapt to it, because maybe they're small business owners, maybe their job's the one telling them that they can't come in anymore. So I think as we saw like sort of these knee-jerk reactions of, I have to get everything situated with my life and make things right, we saw clamming up and relaxing and clamming up and relaxing. And, we're seeing it now with this whole, a lot of the states being told to voluntarily essentially shut down.
That's going around right now. I think Ohio is going to be next here. You hear a lot of rumor about tomorrow. You hear a lot of rumor for the weekend. I hear, banks are going essential clientele or essential staff by the weekend. You're going to finish the week out. But if you're not, they're not going to be processing, loans and mortgages and things of that nature. It's going to be basically they're going into another level as well. So I was just curious about it. I mean, I think that, like you were mentioning the events, we had that we'll talk about maybe in part 2 a little bit, but I mean, rolling with it is like Wednesday, we made the decision to cancel our big annual event, and we had already purchased, about 10,000 cigars for that event. And, it's right now we're crippled to a sense, and I'm not trying to make anyone, and I've talked to a lot of people on the phone before the event, at the event, non-event, excuse me. We were open on Sunday. But even, yesterday, I mean, we were in the negative. We were in the negative yesterday, and it was today might be similar. I mean, we're all rolling through this in a different time.
Absolutely.
Or not a different time, different way, but it just hit people differently so far, and I think it's going to continue to do so. Before we dive into this a whole lot, Ryan, you said this chat is weird. Are you talking about Kylie and other people?
I don't know what Kylie's doing. She's putting some weird energy in that chat right now.
I think that's what Kylie does. Kylie's doing what Kylie does right now, and I appreciate her joining us tonight. We've got a good audience. I feel like we might have a good audience throughout the podcast because, honestly, there's not a whole lot going on right now. So
you got that right.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of sports. I don't know if cricket's still going on or not. I don't know if that's happening right now. Darts, I heard, is getting really electrifying right now. So if you guys are on the online gambling sites, check that out. I don't know a whole lot about it. But at this point, I'm going to try to bring in a couple guys that know a little bit more about bourbon along with us. So this screen might get a little full. John Michael, I'm sorry if the logo covers you up here.
You can maybe even take me out of this for a while because I'm drinking Tullamore Dew right now. I have nothing to add to this conversation.
I think that's good. All right, I'll take you out. Stay tuned. We'll bring you right back.
Some fresh meat in. Bring me back to the party when you're ready.
All right, you got it.
Enjoy the craft services and.
All right, we got Nate here. We got the one and only Jake Sanders, and also typically in the garage we've got Dustin Bovey. So let's see, everyone get on the mic, see if we can hear you.
What's up? How's everybody doing?
I can hear you just fine.
What's up, Jake?
Good to see everyone.
Am I in?
Yeah,
you're in, buddy.
You and your AirPod.
Honestly, I'll take you out here for a moment, okay?
Sure.
It's like a frigging It's a party in here. It's like the Brady Bunch. It's literally what it looks like.
Hollywood players.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into this while we have everyone. Jake and Dustin, welcome. Nate, welcome back. So I'm drinking the Four Roses small batch. I know, Nate, you got a bottle of it as well. Jake and Dustin, you know quite a few things about Four Roses. What are you drinking there, Jake?
I'm drinking the Four Roses small batch 1/30th.
Fancy.
The limited edition back in 2018. So that's about the only thing that I had that resembled Four Roses small batch. So sorry.
You're so highbrow now. It's amazing.
No, I'm not.
I got this 32 bottle of Four Roses. You're like, hang on, let me see what I have in my cabinet. You can't get this anymore, but I guess I'll compare it with you guys.
I mean, the only reason why I was able to get it is because Alicia won it at one of the auctions or whatever, one of the raffles. We got the what's the word I'm looking for? The right to buy one. That was
right.
it.
Yeah, in the state of Ohio, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Bobby Hirschman says Jake didn't pay his electric bill. I think you're outside right now, correct?
I am outside because I'm smoking a cigar. Look at the ash though on this BS Gold, man. I've been loving this.
Every single one of them has been rolled so perfectly well. I was going to say that earlier.
That's fantastic.
Every single one. I mean, I smoke a lot of Cuban cigars, and no Cuban I've smoked can hold up to the consistency of the burn on the BS.
Well,
that's absolutely phenomenal.
No, and the Plasencia family and the Nicaraguan factory did a great job for us, and I'm happy that it's going on. And like I mentioned, I thank Ryan Ponist and also Alec Rubin for working on that project with us. So that's fantastic. Let's talk about the Four Roses, right? So
yeah.
I've got this information here, Nate. I know you've got a bottle there, so we can go over it. But this is according to what I've got, and this is kind of a good daily for me. In the state of Ohio, it's about $32. I'm sure it's not that much different in other states. I mean, it's not going to be a pricey bottle.
No, Indiana's the same.
Yeah, and you can typically find it. There are times where it is not available, just like the single barrel. But right now, it's typically available. I know the liquor stores are a little different in all different states right now with everything else going on right now, but you've got a blend here. So there's a lot of consistency, I think, in this bottle. And you've got, according to this, you got one bottle or one blend that's going to be 75% corn, 20% rye, 5% malted barley. So 75, 20, and 5.
Yeah.
And then blended with a 60 corn, 35 rye, and 5 malted barley again there. And they use basically, and you guys, I don't know, Jake, Nate, or Dustin, if you guys want to kind of go over it, but the Four Roses has a nice, what they have is like a triangle of different mash bills that they use with different yeasts and different combinations there.
Yeah, they have, there's 10 different recipes, and Dustin and Nate can jump in whenever, because I know they know too, but because they have 10 different recipes, and then there's 2 different mash bills that people have it flipped most of the time. There's only 2 different mash bills, and then there's 5 different yeast strains, which make up the 10 different recipes. So like, what is it?
There's a floral, there's a spice, there's a fruity, and that's all based on the yeast strands.
Yeah, there's
each
a
different
E
strain
and a B.
each strain brings out different notes of the whiskey.
Right.
If you have a yeast that's maybe a little more florally, you'll get more floral notes out of the whiskey, depending on the mash bill. Spices, obviously, you'll get more spice out of it. So the yeast strain, it's something that Four Roses does completely different than a lot of other distilleries, because they have so many different variations. The possibilities are almost endless.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what I like so much about Four Roses is, like, how when I was in Ohio and on the podcast regularly, I would say that, each distillery kind of has like those same kind of notes.
Yeah.
Like Four Roses is the same way. That's why I love Four Roses. Like, even
they have their distinct notes. Like, what's Wild Turkey, what's Jim Beam.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, like, even though you have like the E and the B, so like if people don't know, so like OBSV is the recipe, whatever, the way to decipher it is the main recipe that they used for the Four Roses single barrel.
Right.
And then, So but the different mash bills are E and B, which means that there's always going to be either an E or a B in there, and then there's a V, K, O, Q, and F. And then that depends. Those are the yeast strains that depend on what kind of notes you're getting. So like V is like the delicate fruit notes, the K is the light spice, the O is the rich fruit, the Q is the floral essence, and then the F is herbal notes. But every one of them, even though that Four Roses tries to differentiate between all of them, it's interesting that Four Roses is known for having those deep, dark, rich fruit notes that, you know, I've known to grow in love with most bourbons, and that's why I love Four Roses.
So keep talking, Jake, but I'm going to see if I can kind of display this on my screen here. So keep talking.
So are you going to bring up like a picture of like the different recipes?
Yeah, I can't really.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
OES.
But that's where it's like you can kind of see. I'm sorry about that, guys. I don't have a second monitor to kind of scroll over, but
that works. So
that's kind of the way that they stack them up when they're talking about them there.
See, I really like one recipe that I really SQ, which is interesting because like you have the rich fruit note as part of the first yeast strain, and then the E, which is, 75% corn, 20% rye, and then 5% malted barley, and then the SQ, you know. So, and then you have like floral and blah blah blah. But that's one of my favorites.
I like the way that they break it down. You know, like you and I, Jake, we went to Four Roses together. What now? Almost like 2 years ago or so.
I know. I can't believe it.
I know. I can't believe it's been that long, but I mean, we just did the tasting and they walked you through all that. So if you guys are in the area, I know that Eric down the Bourbon Trail that has all the Airbnbs, he's offered 15% off. I don't know if he's watching. I know he's hit hard by all this as well. I mean, the hospitality world is hit just like everything else. I just saw an article that the CEO of Hilton is looking at possibly closing down Hilton's based off of this going forward, and it's tragic. But if you guys are still traveling, you know, once this all happens, you know, we get by all this stuff. But check out Four Roses because they do have a great tour that I was not able to attend because they were doing construction. But when we were down there, Jake, it was nice because we had a nice. They kind of go over all the different ones like you were just going over.
Yeah. I mean, that was a wonderful experience. And I would say if people want to go down to, there's two different locations of Four Roses. And the second one that actually isn't the distillery, I think is the better because that's where the warehouse is and everything. And that's actually right next to Jim Beam's American Still House near Covington.
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorites is going to there and seeing the rick houses because their rick houses are only 3 ricks high. So really? they have a very, very controlled area of what to work with. And that's how they kind of stick with their consistency, you know, as far as, you know, doing 10 different recipes and then keeping them very consistent throughout. Yeah. So.
Well, and Earl's watching. He says the interesting thing is that Four Roses try to age the same mash the same exact way to keep the consistency and get variation mainly through the mash. So
yeah,
definitely. Nate, you're drinking this as well right now, correct?
Yes, I am.
So what are you getting from it? I mean, you got a nice pour there, I see.
Yeah, I went out and bought this bottle before the podcast, and I'm already below the top of the label.
This time is if anyone's following Nate Hale on social media, he's putting some hurtins on the bottle right now.
Yeah. I also got a Ancient Age 10-year 175. So
there you go.
Nice. It was there. So
what was that? $15?
23 for the 175.
Yeah.
Throw in shade.
Jake's got the bottle, and Nail's got the stick.
But no, with this one, being such a high corn content on the mash bill, it tastes different than some of the other high corn mash bill whiskeys that we've tried. The finish lasts a decently long amount of time. It's not a sharp whiskey whatsoever. Mine's got just a little bit of spice, not a whole lot of the fruit notes in the bottle that I picked up. But the spice isn't harsh. It's not overbearing. It's just there. It's just got a nice overall flavor. But it has kind of that brightness to it.
Yeah.
Not in a negative way, just the way it hits the palate. It's not super rich, but even though there is quite a bit of flavor, it's just very bright on the palate.
I think there's a lot of flavor in this one. That's, I guess, why I keep going back to it. I get just a little bit of sweetness from it. And again, I don't know if it goes perfectly well with the Filthy Hooligan, but I mean, it doesn't go against it, which I like. But the bottle itself, I think the reason I go with it for $30, I mean, it's anymore with the prices of whiskeys and bourbons out there. This is, in my opinion, one of the most solid bottles at that $30 price point anymore.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I feel like that's what I know what I'm getting. So if I'm going in there and looking at stuff, it's like, all right, so I can spend $40 or $50 and try something new. I can spend $40 or $50 on something I know I like, or, you know, if they have any more like a Buffalo Trace or like Eagle Rares around the same price. If this was sitting next to Eagle Rare, I still like Eagle Rare better at that kind of similar price point in Ohio. That's what Dustin's.
Every day.
Dustin, I told Dustin, you know, it's like the thing is, I just had a bottle of Eagle Rare, and it doesn't last in my house, unfortunately.
Nope.
And
That's why I have a 1.75 liter.
all right, that's cool, man. Whatever. But
See, I drank through
I
mine.
mean, I'm wearing a Four Roses hat, so if that
oh well, that's nice too.
I already drank through my half gallon. So
Of Eagle Rare.
yeah.
Yeah, see, Jake and I have a similar problem, and Nate is quickly following suit, it seems, based on this week. So bottles
That's
aren't
what
lasting.
happens when you're forced to work at home with your spouse.
Ooh.
We just lost Nate.
Yeah, every time Nate's been on the podcast, every time Nate's been on the podcast, he's been talking about how amazing Jess is, and now he gets some alone time with her.
So
and now,
amazing. Yeah, that's fantastic.
4 days in.
Ryan Jones says $30 is $30. I don't know if we're talking about whiskey there, or if he's just talking about what he's, you know, in this time, what he'll do for $30.
Interested.
We'll see. If you're in the Illinois area, look up Ryan Jones, because he said $30 is $30, and you know, a lot of people are lonely right now, so that's something to think about, I guess.
I'll say that
For $30 bottles, Four Roses is up there with, you know, your Knob Creek.
Yeah.
As far as $30 bottles that are great for the budget, and Eagle Rare as well. You know, a lot of the major distilleries have a phenomenal line at that $30 to just over $30 bottle.
Yeah. John Michael, what were we going to say there?
you know, as someone who doesn't drink and hasn't had a drink in about 7 years, it is nice to hear people like be able to appreciate things, whether that be cigars or bourbons or wines or anything like that. The fact that you know, each of you can pick up on certain notes. It's you know, it's nice to hear that people can enjoy those types of things within, you know, the bourbons. It's great.
Yeah. So, you know, John Michael, if you want to share a little bit, I mean, you used to drink. I mean, we've had a few people on. Q was probably the last one I remember. Q, he was on a great episode where he shared a lot about just his life story in the second part. But I mean, as far as he also doesn't drink any longer for similar reasons. I mean, it's just, to your point, I think it's cool that you can appreciate that, because I know you do about some finer things in life. I mean, you definitely you have pointed interest when you're doing things, whether it be golf or you're smoking cigars. I mean, you don't just do it to do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just a quick little background with my story. So when I was younger and in my teens and 20s, I hit it pretty hard. Led to some unfortunate circumstances, time spent in the back of cop cars and overnight cells. So, you know, when I was kind of at the age of 28, I kind of had to take a look around my life and make the decision where I wanted to be in life and what was holding me back from that. And alcohol was the thing that was holding me back. So, you know, for the record, I do not blame alcohol. Once again, like it's amazing that you guys can appreciate that. It was just my reaction to it. So, you know, in May will be 7 years since my last drink.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Nice.
Thanks, guys. You know, it's but I still get to appreciate those finer things, right?
Yeah.
Like whether that be cigars or whether that be playing golf or just hanging out with my buddies at the tinderbox. So, taking alcohol away from my life has allowed for me to have those moments that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
That's fantastic. But with that being said, I mean, you obviously you smoke some good cigars. You pair it with what, coffee, with other drinks?
Yeah, coffee. I mean, right now I'm having a Coca-Cola over here sitting next to me.
Coca-Cola Classic, I assume.
Coca-Cola Classic in the master koozie. Yeah.
That's not the sugar cane one, right?
I'll go with the Mexican Coke for sure. But yeah, I mean, in the mornings and days when I'm working from home, which seems to be the case for the indeterminate future. I'll have an espresso in the morning. I'll have a coffee in the morning, step out and smoke a mild cigar and pair them with that for sure. Or, an after dinner smoke. I'll have, like a coffee then or something like that. So you can, I've been able to pair them, probably not in the same way that you guys are able to with, thanks Kylie, I appreciate that. Not in the same way that you guys can with different beverages, but yeah, you make do, you roll with it.
You roll with it. I like that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Jake, you've had small batch before. Obviously, again, I think I don't know. Are we all in agreement that for what I say is that for $30, this is a solid bottle. I would say price point versus flavor versus consistency versus, I think, almost like the complexity of what you're getting out of that for $30. I mean, I don't want to call it a 10 out of 10 like overall bottle, but I mean, for what you're considering, I would definitely be in like that 8-9 range as far as 8-9 out of 10 for what you're paying for. Yeah,
I would agree completely. I think it's one of the best bottles that you can get on the shelf. If I'm just walking into a random liquor store, it's interesting because it seems like Four Roses really isn't a small distillery by any means, but it seems like when they distribute, it's either one big show or nothing. And then, the liquor store may be out of it for a long time. And I don't know if that's the business itself trying to add, a little bit more demand to what they're doing or not. But it's always nice to see it on the shelf for sure. When I was back in town this weekend and went to the impromptu smoking 10 event,
non-event.
I mean, it was still a good, maybe not
non-event.
Non-event. Okay, fine. Anyways,
we just had some really good sales.
Yeah. Well, but then when we left and we went over to Dave Willard's house, we stopped at a liquor store and Brad was with me, Brad Grimsley. He was back in town too. And Brad was asking me what to get, and Four Roses single barrel was there and the small batch. And it was funny because the first thing that he pointed to was the Four Roses small batch.
Yeah.
I like if I'm going to pay, probably $17 more or $18 more on it on the single barrel, I will, because I like it that much more. I think it has a richer flavor. I think it has, those dark fruit notes kind of come out even more so in the single barrel. Because it's that OBSV recipe, but the small batch for $30 or $32 or whatever, it's just you really can't beat it. I mean, between that, Eagle Rare, what Henry McKenna used to be,
right? 107.
Yeah, I mean, even the three before the 107 just knocked Antique 107 out of the park, in my opinion, which is funny coming from me because at the beginning, I'd never had it and I was freaking out about it when Ohio first got it in, and I tried it and I was like, well, what the hell is this? Like, why is everybody freaking out about it? But it's a weeded bourbon, so people naturally love it. But yeah, to answer your question, Four Roses small batch is by far one of the best out there for the value.
Nate and Dustin, do you agree?
Nate.
Oh, I was going to give it up to Dustin first. No, I do agree that at $33, like Jake mentioned, Eagle Rare and some other stuff, but this is typically always on the shelf here in Ohio. We have a hard time finding Eagle Rare unless you want to wait in line 2 hours before the store opens and before the truck gets there. But no, it's always on the shelf. And one of the interesting things that I've heard some people say is they like the small batch more than the single barrel, simply because the small batch is more consistent. which makes sense because a single barrel is going to be different from barrel to barrel. But they appreciate that consistency because they know what they're going to taste every time they light up that, or every time they drink that whiskey. They know what it's going to taste like.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's what they appreciate about the small batch. And at $33 here in Ohio, that's a killer deal on a bottle. It makes it a good everyday type sipping bottle, which is why I think Steve enjoys having it in the garage as a secondary or backup bottle on podcast nights.
I mean, I that's exactly why. And then Earl also threw in Elijah Craig also in that price. I agree with that too.
Yeah, I was going to say Elijah Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Elijah Craig's a great bottle as well in that price point. Dustin, what do you think here on wrap up on the bourbon here?
I think it really is a great value for the bottle. I know in Ohio the single barrel is only about $10 more. So sorry, Jake, for the extra 18 you have in Indiana. But if anyone is looking for some and they can't find it, I know I have some at my liquor store in Whitehall on Broad Street. But it is a great bottle for the value. And Elijah Craig was one I was going to point out too. But I think there's a lot of sleepers out there for that value. A lot of people just kind of sweep them under the rug because there's something that you see more frequently on the shelf, and it's not that rarity tag on it that you would see on a lot of the other things like store picks or your Eagle Rare, which is harder to find. Which, let's be honest, I think Eagle Rare takes the cake over all of them. But with the rarity tag that it comes with, I think the other three players that we've mentioned are also up there as well.
Yeah. Ryan,
I think that kind of.
Go ahead, Nate.
I think that kind of touches. It's interesting. It's kind of the exact opposite of the Filthy Hooligan that you guys were talking about. Like Four Roses small batch, it's always on the shelf, so it gets overlooked. Whereas the Filthy Hooligan, it only comes out once a year, and because it's so limited, when people see it, it's like, oh, it's come out around St. Patrick's Day. I got to try it.
Yeah.
Because it's more limited. So two completely different marketing's going on with that one, or results of the product.
No, you're not wrong there. You're not wrong. I mean, we're smoking a cigar here. The three of us are smoking a cigar that is more limited. Where the bottle tonight is one. I'm actually happy that Nate, you were able to grab it. Obviously, the other guys know about this bottle, but this is something that a lot of the times on the podcast we have a couple up on the shelf that are in waiting, but we've had so many bottles on this podcast. Jake, when you were around and early on, you brought a lot of bottles on that you can't get.
Yeah.
And it's fun to learn about. It's fun to seek it out for the bourbon enthusiasts. But again, it's nice to be able to review a bottle, I think, together that is regularly available. So for those that are bourbon enthusiasts, the hunters, that do all this stuff, I think it's, even for them, I think it's nice to be able to talk about something that is an everyday whiskey that you can enjoy, you can find, you can buy for $30. It's not something that has a tremendous secondary market value. This is something that is a daily drinker for those that want to do that. I mean, but it's also something that I think a lot of people that are being introduced to whiskeys in general or bourbons, this is something that you can find. It's reasonably priced, and I think that it's something that is a solid bourbon to a point where there's not a lot of spice, not a lot of something that's going to turn people off. So if this is a kind of I don't want to say introductory bottle, but this is a solid bottle that new drinkers as far as bourbon goes, and also people that are around. John Michael's smiling because I think he just read Kylie's comment. I'd like to donate a bottle of Old Crow to the podcast for review.
Yeah, it's going to set her back, what, $10?
Ooh, I had a college roommate with Old Crow.
That's a big one.
There was a bar in Oxford, Ohio, at Miami that did a 14-day challenge, and most people, you had to drink 3 drinks to basically for 14 days straight to get your name up on the wall. And I don't know, basically it was just a drink fest. But my roommate Dovitz basically decided to, instead of doing beers for 75 cents that they had, or $1.25, I think, champagne and beers was on that. There's one that looked like the thing in like The Simpsons where not Duff, but it was just like a white can with just beer on it. I think that was one of them. And then he went with Old Crow as a senior in college, and then all the bartenders signed it. And I don't think he remembered getting that bottle, but he woke up with that bottle. So Old Crow is definitely something that we can review. Kylie, if you want to donate that, let's do it.
You know, the funny part is though, is like with the Old Crow. Yeah. The funny part is about like the Old Crow is like the Old Crow used to have like some really, really cool old ceramic decanters.
Yeah.
And so now they're just, you know, Steve knows, and then Dustin, Nate, they know that now they're really being sought after. You know, they were probably just as cheap as they are now, you know, back in the 50s and 60s. And now, you know, they're going for thousands of dollars because they come in a, you know, decanter that is beautiful and it is art, but, you know, it has that tack strip and it's the same whiskey basically. So
Ryan Jones asked if he can donate a bottle of Mad Dog 2020 and a few cans of Four Loko.
Yeah, geez.
If we get to like episode 500, maybe.
I'm not.
We'll do Old Crow with a pack of Marlboro Lights.
I think I might be sick. I got the Heineken virus.
Yeah.
All right.
I will not be in the garage for that one.
No, all right, fair enough.
I did want to mention, like Steve, like you said about like me bringing those fine. Like the idea behind all that wasn't even just to show like good bottles. It was the fact that, you know, I'm sure most of you are under the impression as me, but you know, you share good whiskey and old whiskey with good friends. So right. I think that, you know, you share it with good friends and family. So I think that was, you know, the biggest, I don't know, motivation for me bringing those bottles in. And I think it's good. You know, I think it's good to do that.
I think it's interesting. And for those of you guys that are tuning in for the first time tonight, or you tune in occasionally, I mean, this is something that was stemmed off of, you know, Jake Sanders and myself. We were doing Whiskey Wednesdays before we started the podcast. That's how this all was created basically typically either in the shop or in my old garage, and we would hang out, and then we started the podcast. And I think that's why it was when we were so interested in trying different things at the time. And you were fortunate enough at the time to find a lot of these things. And it's interesting to see how far we've come in 110 episodes, that we went from sitting around, you know, having bottles of whiskey, just, you know, two of us or a handful of friends in there and sharing a good bottle, to putting it on the air and now going live. And now we're doing this remotely. This is what it's all about, though, in my opinion, is obviously getting together in this time where I'm happy, and I feel very fortunate that you guys have joined me tonight remotely. Some of us are smoking, some of us aren't, but and everyone out there listening, I appreciate it. But Ryan,
I turned the light on. Did you see that? So my power isn't out.
No, I see it. Yeah, that looks good.
Oh, sweet.
Dustin's sitting in, I think, a neighbor's garage or something like that. He just found a.
No, it's my own garage.
Oh, okay.
And the neighbor's.
Probably crazy spot to hunker down in.
It's probably that damn kid that was across the street bitching us out that one night, Dustin.
Easy.
No, we got a
in
nicer
the
truck.
parking garage next to a Walmart waiting for toilet paper right now.
I work at a grocery store. I get for tax.
Dustin, I might actually have to take you up on that gift, by the way, in the next week or two.
I got you.
I appreciate it. All right, so what I want to do now, if you guys don't mind, I mean, I want to thank everyone for tuning in for part one. Ryan, thank you for being a part of the cigar side, especially. I mean, this is, again, the Alec Bradley Filthy Hooligan. I would recommend. So there's a couple things that I want to say about this cigar. It's a very good cigar. John Michael had some good points about the fact that it is a bit, you know, marketing heavy. We talked about that. So don't skip it up because of that, because we're the three of us that are smoking it currently, and I don't know about the other three on the feed here, but it's a solid cigar. It's different. I think it's worth it. I don't know if everyone's going to want to, like, you know, drop down for a box, but at the same time, it's a good cigar. It's different. And if you guys want to try new things, I think you should do it. And also, I will say this right now, as someone in retail for the cigar side, and, you know, Ryan doing what he does, and he's a salesperson for Alec Bradley. You know, Jake is under the same thing that we are, in a sense, right now. And, in Columbus, where we're basically 10 to 6 right now, carry out only, and that might change. But if you guys are able to, and you're interested in trying it, definitely stop by your local brick and mortar and support it, because I mean, a lot of them are small businesses, and this is the time where, while we have the opportunity to do so, we need to support it. I know everyone's getting a little tighter on their cash and everything like that, but I totally understand that, because I'm going to be the same way. But things are changing currently, and hopefully it won't last very long. But I think that this is something that all of us, and no matter what you guys are doing for a living, we'll talk about a little bit here in part 2. So stay tuned if you're on the feed, or if you're listening to the audio side as I post it later this week or early next week. Definitely listen to part 2, because it is rolling with it. I mean, we got to roll with it. So thank you guys for being a part of this. Everyone that's been watching and listening, appreciate it. Stay tuned. If you guys have other stuff to do tonight, I understand, but I understand there's not a lot going on. So hopefully you guys can continue with the conversation in the comments. And I want to thank our sponsors for part 1. It's Tinderbox at Easton for the weekly featured cigar, which is the Filthy Hooligan. Because it's limited edition, I can't do necessarily 15% off, but call the shop, contact us. We'll see what we can do as far as a deal for you. We can ship something to you while we're still operating currently. I hope nothing changes, but I don't know what's going to happen. None of us do. So whether it's now or later, we do have a nice stock of the Filthy Hooligan and the Shamrock. So if you support your local brick and mortar, but if you're not able to find them locally, we will be happy to ship you something as we can. I already shipped something this week earlier. I think I'm going to go tomorrow and ship something else, try to get it out before we, things really change. Hopefully they don't, but if they do. So I also want to thank Altadis USA, Josh Bentley, Paul Waller for believing in us and supporting us. That's the flag behind me. Normally it's a little bit more prevalent in the garage with the normal setup. So we're going to get back to that as well.
Yeah, your head's in the way, man. You got the Mike. There you go, Mike.
There you go. For part 2, I've got the Adrian Nicaragua, which was
Cigar of the Year.
Cigar of the Year. So we're going to be smoking that. I know John Michael's got one. He did come into the shop.
Let me see if I got one.
Check that random cigar store that you're loitering in right now.
Where's he at?
We got one in here.
Where are you at?
I'm doing this in a cigar shop. We can roll with it.
We can talk about this. Let me finish this out.
All
also,
right,
BS Cigar Company, BS Gold and Silver back in stock. I know a lot of people are enjoying the gold, and a lot of people already enjoy the silver. Things are smoking really well right now, so that's another one that we can ship out to you. If you guys want to contact us through the podcast or Tinderbox at Easton, our first sponsor, we can definitely get some BS out to you. We got a healthy stock of those. I'm happy we already have another order in for even more BS Golds, because they are smoking really well. And for those following in social media, I was smoking a test blend today. And we're going to keep working on that as this year goes on. So I'm looking forward to it. And Jake's got it on the camera. Beautiful cigar. So, guys, thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for listening on the audio and also the live feed. Check us out on iTunes, Spotify, Overcast, iHeartRadio, all those good things. Also on YouTube. This now will be immediately available on YouTube after we stop, because we're also on YouTube Live. So that's going to be something nice. So for those of you that have friends that are not on Facebook and can't listen in or watch us, we are now available on YouTube Live, which I'm excited about. So
it's awesome, Steve.
Yeah, it's a big thing. So it's fantastic. Thank you guys very much. And remote cheers. Everyone stay happy and healthy, and take care of yourself and obviously others as well. So
can I do this?
Clinky.
Did that work?
It did.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a good plan.
Normally, this is when Nate would freeze it. John Belly's on, so now we're in a little bit of a break here. So John Belly says, thank you for having me on last night. John, that was actually 2 nights ago. I don't know what you've been doing, but happy anniversary again.
Quarantine goes fast.
He totally missed a day. Maybe 2. Gentlemen, how are we doing out there?
Good.
Yeah, anyone need a break, or are you good?
No, I was just going to say, in the great words of Arthur Shelby, there's nothing us men can do except go get drunk.
I feel like you live your life that way no matter what's going on in the world.
That was Arthur Shelby. I thought my grandfather said that. Jesus.
Well, I mean, it was Prohibition era. It was like 1920 something or other. So, yes, it could have been your great-grandfather. It's fine.
For those of you guys on this live feed, or you're listening to YouTube later or Facebook later, the idea here is this is the remote podcast. We're trying to flow through all this stuff, but the idea eventually will be we have the ability to bring people on remotely, but also we want to keep the same format. So normally there'll be 2-3 people at the table. We're going to go back to that as soon as all the restrictions kind of get lifted, and we get the chance to do that again. So that nothing's going to change overall. I like this. I like the ability to do this, but I like sampling out of the same bottle and having people get together, because I think that's something that is always nice with this podcast. So nothing's going to change overall. Now I'm hearing you.
Yep,
Me.
that's my bad. That's my fault. Yep, I got it.
All right, you guys want to roll into the second part here?
Yeah, I'm trying to share it up.
All right, well, turn down your volume there.
Nah.
Hot mic. You guys want to stick with this right now for the time being? If you guys want to, tune out, I think you can do that. You can also turn your mic off as well.
Can you move the screens around? Like,
I don't think so.
I was just curious. That's all.
Not when there's 6.
Yeah,
Do you not like your position? You want to be number 6?
I can do things, as far as I can make you primary.
Okay.
Take that out. I wish there was you could drag them, but I can't do that.
I'm just tired of looking at Ryan underneath you.
Did my technical difficulties thing work? Did that work earlier when I
saw
did
it pop up in your little feed? Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's cool.
How do you comment? How do you live? I have live comments.
We're on multi-platforms. I got my phone sitting here.
Oh,
I've got my phone.
Yeah, you have to go in through
If I see the comments on the side, I got to go to my phone to respond to anything.
Well, on the side, you should. On the feed, if you have it on the right-hand side of your screen, you should be able to see that.
I can
You can see it, but you can't comment.
You can't post a comment?
Yeah.
No.
It's not interactive for us, so I have to go to my phone. That's why I keep looking down here.
That's fine.
That's
And
fine.
I may need to switch this over from my laptop to my phone.
Okay.
Getting down to 29%, so FYI.
If you do that, John Michael, what you probably have to log off and then just follow that same link on your phone, and then I'll see you pop back up.
Yep.
All right.
I'll
Well,
try to use advanced warning.
do you want to do that right now
Sure.
before we start the second conversation here?
Yeah.
Here goes Bobby fucking getting on my
I'm
ass.
gonna leave that right now and get back on my phone.
All right. John Michael's going to go. Now we've switched back here.
Nice. I'm right on the fucking logo.
Lean over a little bit to your right there, I think.
See, it's bad because it's
Your other right.
backwards. So, this is my left.
Yeah, I said
Now
you're
I-
right. There you go.
Yeah, it's whatever.
All right. Let's get John Michael back on here. Everyone that's listening, I appreciate you guys listening to the little bonus footage here.
I gotta readjust here.
All right. Get comfy there, buddy. Keep your pants on.
I mean, I'm outside, and I'm on the first level now. So,
Even more reason to keep your pants on.
Sure. All right.
All right.
More right. Got it.
There you
You
go.
comfy
Yeah,
there,
there you go.
sunshine?
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice area. You guys want to see? It's a nice view. It's raining. Got a nice little drizzle.
So I think what I'll do here, Nate, just so you know, since you're kind of in this technical side, I think I can import all the audio, and then I'll just have to splice it into the audio part. We got John Michael back here.
Woo!
Okay.
You're a little choppy.
Let's see. Maybe
No,
if
you
I
sound
can
good.
go on.
It's a lot of fake.
I do.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right,
There's
let's
a lot coming from you.
Oh,
Oh, come on. You got to.
All right.
That's why I picked this. It's very dynamic. I can
Yeah,
get up in it.
everywhere.
All right, ready, guys?
Yep.
All right, and this is when Nate hits start. John Michael's getting us all crooked here. All right. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone, and welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. You can hear the cheers and clinking by Jake Sanders.
ding, ding, ding.
I want to thank everyone for being a part of this episode 110.2. We've got a full house here. We're using new technology for us, and I'm happy that this is working out so far. So bear with us if we have any. What's that, Ryan?
I dig this.
Yeah,
I feel like getting everybody together, but I dig this.
Yeah, it's working out, and I know this is something that all of us need right now, and a lot of people hopefully are enjoying the feed. So episode 110.2, We want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, for the weekly featured cigar. We're smoking the Alec Bradley Filthy Hooligan for 2020. I got John Michael smoking it, Ryan Ponist as well. I have Nate Hale on the feed here. Jake Sanders is back in the house remotely, and Dustin Bovey, who's normally answering a lot of the Facebook feed, he's on the feed live as well. So we're going to have a nice conversation here tonight. But Tinderbox at Easton, thank you very much for sponsoring us. And Ryan Ponist being like a Vanna White.
Yeah.
I also want to thank Altadis USA. So I am excited to smoke. I do like the cigar, the Aging Room Nicaragua. So they sponsor us for another year, which we appreciate the support. They are also helping us with their sponsorship dollars to be able to do this type of stuff. I also, with the new technology, want to thank Bourbon BS Cigar Company. I thank you, BS Cigar Company. And I'm not that drunk. I barely tipped into the bottle. BS Cigar Company. The gold is back. The silver is available as well in all three sizes. Thank you to everyone that's been a part of that and everyone that's enjoyed those cigars so far. We hope you guys are able to stop in and grab some. We're going to slowly start rolling those out to a few other cigar shops. But if you guys want to try some, definitely contact us, and we'll try to ship some out to you as we roll through all this stuff going on with the situation that the whole country and world is in right now, which is what we're going to be talking about. I also want to thank all the patrons on Patreon. So patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. This is a way for you guys that enjoy this. You guys can support us. We've had some great support so far. I am rocking, you can't really see it very well right now, but the new BS shirt. This is something that I fear will be delayed a little bit because I know that with everything going on, I need to talk to our supplier on that. And I know that the patrons have been notified. They've already contacted me with what size they need. But if you guys are interested in the t-shirt, the best way to do it is to sign up for Patreon. That's again, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. You can do a monthly thing. It's just real easy. $5, $10, whatever amount you want to do. We've had a lot of support. So thank you, everyone. And if you get in before we send out our first shipment, I'll get that out to you. And after that, there'll be tiers set up so that you can sign up for maybe, $5, $10 a month. And after a few months, we'll do like 3 months, you'll get a t-shirt. I'll ship it out to you. So we're having fun with that so far. I like the t-shirts. We also have obviously the new BS hoodies as well for the Tinderbox. It's going to go on pre-sale.
Dustin's laughing.
What are you drinking there, Jake?
It's a Four Roses cast strength. It was actually a Crown Liquors pick that I found up here in Indiana. It's called Eleanor, and it's 10 years old, which is right in my wheelhouse.
Wow.
So,
He felt bad.
Some
for
of us
the,
were old enough to
the
drink
130th. So he thought he'd take a step backwards. It was just a baby step.
Yeah.
Take a step backwards.
yeah, I mean, it's
All
only 58%. It's okay.
So what we want
okay.
to talk about tonight for part 2 here, and I appreciate you guys being a part of this and everyone listening as well. I mean, we are in obviously a national and worldwide pandemic right now, and we don't necessarily need to get into all that stuff. I'm not sure where this conversation is going to go, but I mean, rolling with it is definitely the attitude that I feel like we all have to have, because at this point, I've gotten through all the stuff we talked about on last week's episode with our smoking tent event being canceled. Rolling with that was before a lot of the other things came through. But in the meantime, I mean, we're still able to do this. I mean, we still have a lot of ability to get together in different ways. So I know that with us, here's what's happening in my life for you guys. With the obviously we're doing this remotely. Things have changed just by this. So if you're watching this, it obviously has a different look to it. We're trying to, abide by what the recommendations are, and obviously on top of that, not only recommendations, but what some of the things that are rolling through statewide and locally for some people, and also nationwide. But on my side, Liz is a server. My girlfriend's a server. So at this point, they closed down restaurants, bars, and everything else. They've also closed down some other things in Ohio. And they might close down some more, but I mean, that's something that these are making some big life changes. So, my girlfriend is rolling with it the best she can. She's had to take them up on unemployment because she's unemployed. I mean, this is a lot of servers, bartenders, a lot of service industry are dealing with that.
Yep.
On my side, we limited hours. We're 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and we're carry out only as well. We made that call because in our shop, there's we're not necessarily forced to do it yet, but it's something that we thought was the right idea, so that there aren't people sitting elbow to elbow, smoking cigars, sharing ashtrays, dealing with all that stuff. And Liz and I actually just got a thermometer. We didn't have one in the house, so she had to actually get one from her father. And I got to be honest, I was actually kind of not scared, but nervous to take my own temperature because I feel fine. It's something that every little time you cough or you feel a little, it's allergy season, it's cold season, it's flu season, it's everything else season on top of all this stuff. So as soon as you start feeling that way, so I took my temperature. I'm happy to report that I am 97.5. I'm actually going the other way.
I posted yesterday.
Yeah.
I've never been more scared to death of an eye floater in my entire life.
Yeah.
You're talking about like
when you can see like a little microorganism like on your eye, like while you're looking around, like you're just sitting there, you're in the middle of a pandemic, quarantined in your apartment or your household, and then all of a sudden there's just something on your eye where you're like, yeah, that's coronavirus right there.
Well, that's not how that works.
Because that's exactly where your head goes. Like, why would that be?
You wait till you get an eye floater, Jake Sanders.
Look, I mean, we all do. I had the flu. I tested, what is it? It's the type A flu. Like, I had that a week ago.
Did you go to the doctor on that?
Yeah. I felt I haven't been sick in 4 years.
And it did test positive for the flu.
Yeah. I felt like a dry tickle.
Yeah.
And then a dry cough in my chest on my birthday on Saturday, the 7th. And then I woke up Sunday and I was okay. And then I took a nap Sunday, and then I woke up and I was just dead. I mean, I didn't have any energy. My body ached. I could feel it in my eyes. Like I normally feel like a sickness in my neck for some reason, like
it's your lymph nodes and everything else, obviously.
Yeah. So, and then I went to the doctor here, and I had 100-degree temperature, and I didn't even realize. So
and that was before all of this, correct? I mean, this really escalated in the last week.
that was a week before like everything shut down. I mean, that was a week ago. So, I mean, people forget that the flu's been bad alone just this year. I mean,
I don't think anyone's forgetting that. I think it's just the reaction that we have going on, obviously, with all of this coronavirus stuff. So, I mean, I'll ask you guys if you want, I mean, to kind of share how this has affected you, because I mean, at this point, I've got one person in the house that is technically unemployed. She's got unemployment now coming in. It's not going to match her normal tips and everything else. She's trying to pick up some, just side work. She babysits a little bit for the last probably 6 months, but that stopped, and now she's getting contacted by the couple that have a small child, and so she's gonna obviously take them up on that. I mean, it's every little bit helps, and I think that this is something that. This is why this roll with it type thing. I mean, you can be angry all you want, you can be upset, you can be scared, you can be all this stuff, but when it comes down to it, obviously it's taking care of yourself. But how has this affected you, John Michael? If you want to share how this has affected you, because I think this is what it's all about. Everyone's got something going on, and I mean, it's not a sob story, but I mean, I think that this is something that you can use this platform that we have to kind of share what we're going through, so that maybe through this conversation we can kind of all get on the same page as a group and as a community to keep rolling with it.
Yeah. So, like many of us, it's affected me both personally and professionally. So personally, my wife and I have been in our house since Saturday without leaving. The only time I left was today to go to the tinderbox to pick up some cigars.
Carry out only.
Yep.
Appreciate the support.
It's a change. It's a definite change, and I think the scary part is when will it come to an end, right? How long are we expected to be like this? Where we're having groceries delivered, or the only things we go out for are the necessities, and then quickly coming back, washing our hands, and come back to our bunker. Essentially, that's what it is. So it's scary. Yeah, calling, checking on my parents who are both in their 60s, calling them each day, making sure that they're okay, they're feeling okay, they're not engaging in, risky behavior, going out to restaurants and things like that in Tennessee, where I'm from.
Which normally you don't think about, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, would you have ever thought about, calling your parents 2 weeks ago, be like, have you guys been out anywhere other than your office?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's never been a concern, right? You worry about a lot of things, but going out and shaking hands with someone or engaging with someone in any other way, that could be the thing that, sends them to the hospital or worse. So personally, that's how it's affecting me. Professionally, so for those who know me on this podcast, I own a political consulting firm, and much of my work is dealt with political candidates and political organizations.
Right.
So if you're keeping up with the news, Ohio essentially postponed without an exact date. Postponed their primary election, which was supposed to take place yesterday, St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
And they did so with less than 24 hours notice. It quickly went to and is still going through court process. But, I have clients who have spent money and countless hours and time, effort, and blood, sweat, and tears on preparing for the March 17th election day. We printed mailers, thousands and thousands of mailers for a variety of clients to say, make sure you vote on March 17th.
Right.
So now, I've been fielding phone calls left and right from my clients ever since that announcement was made. It's like, what do we do? How do we prepare for this? And the short answer is, we don't know. You don't ever want to be the person that doesn't know, but you don't, because these are such unique circumstances that we've never had to prepare for something like this, where an election has changed 24 hours before us. So
do you keep campaigning?
Yeah, I mean,
it's like now the campaign trail is continued on in a sense. I'm interested to see what happens with that, like in a state like Ohio.
Yeah,
it's like, do the local candidates, all the people you're working with, and even the national candidates, do you just keep, like, now we have to use money that we already were used up, but do you
That's
try
right.
to get more donors and just be like, all right, well, we still have time to push forward?
Yeah, so if the election is to be on June the 2nd, which is what the governor has asked for it to be, you essentially have like 2.5 months to prepare for that, right? But like you said, when campaigns, raise funds, they spend it down. They spend it down to zero.
Yeah.
So now everyone is kind of at the same starting point. Everyone has $0. So yes, you keep campaigning, but at the same time, like, how can you reasonably go out there and ask people for money when the stock markets are crashing, people's personal economic futures are in jeopardy, and oh yeah, by the way, people are dying across the country? Like, how can you do that? So, it's just a new frontier that we're having to kind of navigate. And once again, like, no one has the answers because no one's been through this before.
I think luckily so far, and I'll say this, I'm not just looking at this in a positive light, but I will say luckily so far, the death count, it has not accelerated a whole great deal. And in Ohio especially, I'm sure there will be some, but I will say that, some of the things that they've done, and I'm not going to get full blown into it, you agree or disagree necessarily, but it is fortunate that we have not seen a really high death count. So that's interesting, though. If anyone wants to chime in on John Michael's stuff, but also like Ryan, with you, you're on the road, and now you're not, I assume.
Right. So yeah, it's a huge change in the way business is being done. Obviously, for somebody like myself, there are plenty of times where working from home does come into play. However, typically a lot of the cigar companies, Alec Bradley being no exception, we pay people to basically make phone calls and emails all day. And basically now we're sort of working with them. And, we have somebody working for us, the guy that I work with, he's ill currently. So, he's been asked to stay at home, and, yesterday he was just home. Now, he's been outfitted to be able to work from home. A lot of my job is relationships, face-to-face, handshakes, all that sort of stuff. And, it's just going to have to be different. and sort of like John Michael was talking about with his profession, where, it's very hard to lean on people when there's so much uncertainty, professionally and financially. It's no different with us, and the one thing that I try to continue to reinforce myself, essentially being very transparent, not to feel like a scumbag. A lot of my brick and mortar retailers are facing the same issues I am, and
Right.
they are attempting to make the best that they can out of the situation. They're finding ways to stay open. Obviously cigars, I'm sure a lot of people on the podcast would disagree that cigars are not essential. However, a lot of the brick and mortars have looked at it, and I think, Jake is doing it. I believe I saw over at Burn in Indianapolis. You guys are doing it at Bourbon BS.
Yep.
Sitting in a shop right now where everybody's going to takeout, they're going to curbside. I have shops that have reacted where they've said, this is all a hoax. I'm going to continue business as normal. I have shops that have closed down. I have shops that have decided to allow people to come in and shop with no lounge. I have shops where literally you call them on the phone and they will meet you outside with a bag of the cigars pre-prepared and your credit card already run.
We've done all those things.
There's no right answer, I think, for this currently. I think everybody's doing the best they can, because on top of any type of panic or uneasiness that you have dealing with a pandemic in itself, the financial burden that everyday people are facing, or whether they're facing it yet or will be facing it, is something that's very disheartening to a lot of people. So I think everybody's trying to make the best of it as the best they can.
Well, I will say this. There's people, and I think that if you're so on a business level, I think that you live your life a certain way leading into something like this. This is going to definitely change a lot of people's lives in a lot of different ways, change their mentalities and all that stuff. But I mentioned earlier, and we're surrounded in this community, especially in the cigar side of it. The bourbon, I think, is the same way. This is definitely, they're both strong community industries. So when I mentioned that, like, Eric Espinosa contacted me today on my drive home, it was one of those things that one of the things he said to me was, hey, like, whatever you need. Dustin, you all right over there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Getting something out of your ear or putting some in, I don't know. But no, but one of the things that he said to me, trying to support, and I'm sure I wasn't the only call, but he called us and he said, he's just kind of like, whatever you need, man. Like, or he said bro, obviously, but he's like, whatever you need. He says, we just made a huge BS Silver order right before the Smoking 10 event. So, ours was the perfect storm as far as the business side of it, where we brought in a ton of cigars for the Smoking 10 event. We brought in a total of, between the gold and the silver, we brought in, I think it was about 7,000 cigars, just so we would have them available for people. So when I talked to Eric, he's just kind of saying, he's like, whatever you need. If you need us to even like ship you some restock stuff, he's like, I'll defer the payment. You guys have been good to me. It's like you have people reaching out, and he's not necessarily trying to solidify sales at the end of all of this, or when we come back out of this, but he's looking at it as he needs to support people that support him. We're all in it together. He's going to take a financial hit. He's got product in his warehouse.
And that's what I'm saying about the whole idea of, trying not to feel like a scumbag. You hate to call somebody up that's in a position where, this is affecting their day-to-day business in some sort of level. I don't think there's a lot of people that could say right now they're not being affected by this.
Mm-hmm.
But, you mentioning things like, has anybody asked if hooligans can be taken back? Like, that's something that we haven't gotten yet. Even going into the Smoking 10 event, that was a phone call when you reached out to me, and that's what I said was, let's see how these chips fall. Let's see where we're at after, and then we'll talk. And I think that's a big thing. And at the end of the day, on one hand, do I sort of have a guilt about calling up a retailer and saying, hey, do you need more cigars? But on the other hand, if you do have these guys that are trying to stay in business and they are trying to sell, you're in the thick of it with them. And it's the same thing on both ways. It's not like, I work for some huge company where we could subsidize losses forever. You're seeing stuff like people are talking about, like, say, Las Vegas is a very interesting example where you have all the casinos shut down and these guys are still essentially saying, we're going to continue to pay. We're going to continue to put out healthcare. When you're in that sort of, when you have that level of market share, sure, you can do something like that. But I think even in this industry, I would be willing to speculate even the biggest of the players in our industry will feel this. And we are a very small industry overall, as much as we like to think otherwise. It does come down to the mom and pops that really sort of keep this thing going.
Well, and that's what you hope, right? I mean, like at all levels, no matter if if you do have to take a hit. I mean, we're all taking a hit personally, financially, everything else. I mean, that's the way of at least our country, America. It's like we sadly as a country, I think we're living off of credit. I mean, not only the government itself, but like all of us. I mean, so to ask people to basically be like, all right, so we're gonna possibly be a month, 2 months, and hopefully you can make it. Depending on your personal situation or your business situation, it's a tall order.
I have plenty of retailers that have made the comment, with a lot of states ordering, in Pennsylvania, they're ordering a 2-week voluntary shutdown of non-essential businesses. Right. I have plenty of retailers that have basically said, if it's 2 weeks, I'll shut down for 2 weeks and I'll be fine. However, the reason why I feel the need to stay open is because there is an uncertainty that this isn't going to just be 2 weeks.
Right.
And, I need to get a very good idea of how business is going to go forward to be able to make adjustments. I can't be making those adjustments or trying to get in the game 2 weeks from now. I have to see how the money is coming in. I have to see what money is going out, and then I have to make adjustments on that.
Yeah, so Jody Jax is listening. She's been a big supporter of the podcast for quite some time. So Jody, she says she's not in the cigar industry, but my clients are dentists, and more than 90% have closed for 2 to 4 weeks, which is obvious, right? Unless maybe they have the emergency type of surgeries, if that's what they offer. But she said we've been asked not to travel by our company, much like you, Ryan. So phone calls and e-communications is huge now. The CEO of our company made calls today to let us know that us reps will be taken care of no matter what, with the rocky road ahead of us. But we are trying to figure out how to stay afloat if this lasts longer than a few weeks. I mean, it's to your point, Ryan, and to Jody's. I mean, you're absolutely right. And Pat Stiles says it's not 2 weeks. I mean, we don't know what it is. And I mean, we're just like anything else when we're talking about this. This is obviously a very serious, and this affects a lot of people. But ever since we started this podcast, it's something that we always say we're not experts, but this is something that what it's all about is talking as a community and talking as, people that they share a common interest. But this is definitely a model off of a cigar shop, a bourbon meetup, whatever it might be. But you're right. We don't know how long it's going to go. But at the same time, I think it's and not in the full. I hate this whole commentary on our society that, I mean, everyone's showing the true colors when it's like, yeah, we're all going to care about each other. We're trying to save lives and all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, the reason that there's no toilet paper, the reason there's no food, the reason that people are stocking up is that it comes down to survival of the fittest. The reason there's no ammo at the stores, there's survival or it's pure survival. And it'll get to that point where it's, basically, fuck everyone else. I got to take care of my family when it comes down to it. I like the fact that you have businesses and you have people out there that at this point, they're rolling with it. Like the topic tonight, you're rolling with it as long as you can. And it's constantly evolving.
So speaking like what Jody is talking about, like what I'm talking about, and I don't know what all area that Jody, covers with her job. It sounds like she does some sort of traveling, dealing with people face to face. So this was a concern that I addressed, with our company, because our company's basically come out to us and said, listen, we respect your decision on what you choose to do and what not do. We ask you to stay up to date and to stay compliant with the CDC. We ask you to stay compliant with the state. We ask you to stay compliant, with on a national level. And, do I feel comfortable going out and seeing a shop on a day-to-day basis? At this moment, I currently do. However, the one thing that I brought up that keeps me, that will keep me home probably for the foreseeable future is you have to look at things on a logistical perspective. And one of the things that I said, how long until they say hotels close? How long until, well, we're already seeing, takeout is becoming the number one thing. We're seeing that you can't dine in at restaurants. We're seeing a lot of fast food saying, oh, drive-through only. If half of my day is going to be spent simply either A, looking for food, or B, being in line to get food, the money that is being spent for me to be on the road becomes very, very illogical. And the right now, I think the money that we're getting out of being on the road versus the time and the money spent for me being on the road, I think that's potentially something that is just grossly outweighing at this point.
Well, at some point, I mean, they might take away that, you know what I mean? That's the other part of it. And that boggles my mind, obviously, if they funnel everyone through grocery stores. I mean, that's obviously against what the rest of the safety precautions are. It's like, stay away from people. By the way, you can't get food anywhere else than the local grocery stores. So now let's funnel everyone through there, but don't touch anyone. Stay 6 feet away from everyone. And also don't, gather in more than 10 people. And you walk into a grocery store, if that's where everyone has to get their shit. I mean, now it's a point of like, and there's thousands of people around me.
There.
Yeah, they're all gathering. Dustin, you manage a Kroger. Which is for those of you that don't know, you're not local.
Yes.
No, you're in the grocery industry. So
it wasn't really about you. It was about the way Steve kind of added it. It was just like, so Dustin, you.
Well, I mean, not everyone knows that.
So
Dustin has talked about this before on the podcast, and for those of you, I mean, that don't know, he is a manager of a major grocery store, and in a way, business is good. However. It
comes with its repercussions.
Yeah. So
it's
how does that work?
So to kind of put it into perspective, we're doing daily sales, at least for my store, has been about 20 to 30 grand more per day.
Yeah.
Than we would do on Christmas Eve for a week straight. And
you're just trying to keep up. It's not about selling more and more. You're trying to keep up.
So there is. Like our shelves were wiped, and yet we still somehow did $180,000 on a day that we would normally do about 85, 90.
That's one store.
One store. There's stores out there that are doing. There was one store that did $7,000 short of $400,000 in one day.
Yeah,
it's unheard of. To put it into another perspective, so sales for the Columbus Division area, normally our goal is around 3% ahead as far as versus last year's sales. Right now we are at 76%.
Wow.
Versus last year sales. And to put it on the flip side, we're just trying to, like I say, keep a nostril above water. We get a delivery typically once a day. My grocery crew, there's one day a week that we don't get a truck, which is Monday nights. But Saturday night, they canceled our truck completely. We were one of about 30 stores in the area that got deleted. And then the following night, they told us we had to put a cap on how many cases we were allowed to order on that particular truck. It would have boomeranged back in the system to be 4,000 cases. We were told we couldn't go over 1,000. If we were to go over that mark, they would have to delete our truck completely.
Yeah.
And that's just simply to distribute the groceries amongst all the stores. There's 120 stores just in the Columbus Division, and there's 2 divisions in the state of Ohio. So we're all doing the same thing.
Are you guys, I'm going to ask, are you guys limiting things? Because that's something that, it's interesting. I'm tired of watching, obviously, the daily, not tired of, excuse me. I actually am very interested to listen to, Trump's daily address, and also in Ohio, DeWine, our governor, his daily address. They're very different in tone, but I think they're more or less saying a lot of the same things, or they have a similar direction. But when the reporters start asking questions, I'm absolutely baffled by some of the things that when you have in this situation, some of the questions that they're asking both President Trump and also Governor DeWine here. I'm sure a lot of the states of people listening that, it's like you have this situation, this is your job, and you ask a question about, what you call the virus when you could ask a lot more important questions. But with you guys, what I've heard, especially earlier on with the toilet paper, I mean, it's no secret that obviously the toilet paper and other supplies are gone off the shelves, and it's
Paper products and water.
When you
and,
talk,
and bottled water, which is interesting to me because as of now, most
single
places,
bottles and gallon jugs.
Well, hang on.
It doesn't matter.
Most places where people live, like where I'm at, even in the city of Columbus, it's like I've still got Brita filters. I'm still drinking water. I mean, like we've gotten to that point in society that bottled water is this whole thing where we absolutely need it. Now, if you're buying some in case something happens with the utilities and we go full blown survival, I get that. But if people are drinking bottled water still because they're so used to that's a big comment. My question though is because they're asking, literally the government needs to step in, according to some reporters and some people's opinions, that you guys as grocery stores need to be mandated that you have to limit some of these things. So it's shocking.
So we do have limits on select products. So, your paper products, water, cough and cold. For my store, a lot of baby products, formulas, wipes, diapers, hand sanitizer, hand soaps. A lot of the stuff that seemingly has been obviously the first things to go on the shelves. And also the more difficult things to get restocked. We've been putting limits on it. Costco has been doing the same thing. Other retailers have been trying to do the same thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword because, we monitor that as best that we can. But, let's be honest, there's a lot of times where it flies under the radar where people will sneak an extra one or two, without notice. And we've had, especially in my store, we've had a lot of customers who will try the different tactics of, I'm shopping for someone else. This one's for them. This one's for me.
Come in with three people.
I've got 3 different transactions, and come to find out they're all in the same house. They're just in separate bedrooms. But it makes it a lot more difficult to monitor. All we can do is just do our best day in and day out. And, luckily, I'm thankful to have a team at my store where everyone's on the same page with trying to do the best we can to provide for everyone.
I don't want to make light of the situation, but I think that the toilet paper industry really hit their stride way before this with
Procter & Gamble is making bank right now.
No, what I'm saying is we had in the middle of last week's podcast, I went on a little toilet paper rant, which my whole thing is that I don't think you should look at the 12 rolls. I think you should look at the 12 rolls. Are they single rolls, double rolls, mega rolls? I think there needs to be the equivalency. Like if 12 rolls is the equivalent of 128 rolls, that's it, man. You're out. Like that's like you can't get 2 of those. There's no reason for that. I think they're a little
standardizing toilet paper.
I think you need to look at what the toilet paper equals, because if you get Charmin Ultra Strong and you have 128 equivalent rolls and you have a 16 pack, you're done, man.
You dove down to that level. You're that specific.
That's what I joked about. I
You're being that specific.
The box of toilet paper. They realize like in 2 weeks when all the shelves get restocked, I can only hope they're like, man, I still got a lot of fucking toilet paper.
No return.
That's what happened.
I can hope, and that's when my meat department and dairy and everything else gets wiped out.
Yeah.
I mean, they already are. I had we would get a 2-day meat department truck, and every piece of it went to the sales floor, and within about 5 hours, it was empty again. And then I would have a whole nother day with nothing. And
I hear that people are. It's funny being on the Bourbon and BS podcast here, and obviously we talk about how a lot of the weeks leading up to all this stuff, how people line up outside of liquor stores because they hear they're going to have like E.H. Taylor or they're going to have Eagle Rare or something like that, and now you have people that are chasing toilet paper trucks because they heard that this Kroger that I go to or this Sam's Club or this Costco is getting a delivery of fucking toilet paper, and so now you have people lined up around the corner at 7 a.m.
Puts a new name on bounty hunters.
I'm still chasing liquor trucks. It's fine.
There was this amazing clip where they were somebody posted it, and it happened here in Pittsburgh because they shut down the state liquor stores yesterday at 9 p.m.
Yeah,
and
that's criminal.
They're done, right? They're done.
They're done.
For now.
The news ran out to cover the story, and the newscaster's at the desk, and he's like, so the state is shutting down the liquor stores, and there's a lot of people that have concerns about this, and they immediately cut to this woman outside, and she goes, if the end of the world is coming, I don't want to be sober for it. And I'm just like, well,
that's what they're worried about. So they're closing down the bars and restaurants. I mean, this is a huge surge, right? I mean, they're obviously there are a lot of bars around everywhere for a reason. You got Nate over there, basically.
Nate's okay for a while.
But
he's got the Mary Poppins bag.
Nate's just showing this.
Are we just showing our collections now?
No, we're not.
I can go inside.
That's the thing, Jake. If you guys aren't listening, or if you're just listening, you're not watching the feed. Nate has these bottles around him. He's in full survival mode already. He's probably got guns he doesn't want to show. He's got guns and liquor basically at this point. No food, no toilet paper.
Whiskey.
He actually has a
guns.
bunch of corn dogs, but he soaked them all in E.H. Taylor before he.
That's not a bad idea.
$1 million idea right there. $1 million idea.
I've got some E.H. Taylor. I think I might try that.
So don't make fun of that.
All right, Jake, I want to hear from you. Welcome back. Obviously, you're on every once in a while now, but I mean, at this point, you're in Indianapolis, new area, right? This has affected your new gig. I hope that obviously, Liz was actually asking me, how you're going to do. And all I could say is that basically that, Rocky Patel and the company around him has so much money tied up, obviously, into this new building, this new build out, all that stuff that I hope that the other businesses that he runs, obviously the cigar industry and everything else, but I'm hoping that, that's not going to be one of those places that this just would shut down. I think that hopefully you've got some support. You might have to lay off some people as far as like bartenders and servers, but I mean,
I mean, it's definitely interesting. It goes from one stance where, not that I'm not an owner by any means, but I am one of the managers. So like we have to think much like
one of the key positions, basically.
Yeah, I mean, but the management team at Burn has to think much like, Brian would at the Tinderbox,
right.
Because we have over 25 different, employees, and, they all rely on tips, such as,
right.
Like what Liz has to deal with. So, the biggest thing that we learned, or what, Sean, our GM, I think made a great point to myself and Brandon, our other manager, the other day, and said that, this is the time, this is what's going to dictate our future, meaning
right.
that, how we react to this, in accordance to our employees, it will dictate how well Burn Indianapolis will go. So, when this all happened, I was in Ohio when they decided that they were going to shut down Indiana.
Yeah.
And so Sean called me Sunday night and was talking to me about it and said, Monday they're shutting it down at 2:30, which it wouldn't matter for us anyways because we open at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So immediately we all sent messages out to, our staff saying that, we just want you to know that we're here for you. We're trying our best. Rocky's trying to create packages and relief stuff. We try to give them all the tools that they needed, whether it be links to the unemployment offices or phone numbers that they can call when it comes to unemployment for the state of Indiana. I think it's things like that really matter. And when you talk about like showing true colors, I think that's something that, our employees can value.
Yeah.
On the upper level, I'm very blessed that, Rocky himself, along with our director of operations and our director of cigar operations, decided that all management based off of the 5 locations of Burn, they decided to keep the management staff on. while this is going on.
Yeah.
For us, it's kind of nice because I'm in a little bit of a different perspective because we got ready so fast with the Indianapolis location that this is actually kind of, I don't want to say a blessing, but it allows us to get some stuff done that we've been meaning to get done with, the establishment itself.
Sure.
So, when you talk about, we did change our hours, it's kind of funny because we changed our hours across the locations to what you guys are doing at the Tinderbox, where we're basically 10 to 7, which is completely different from my normal schedule because I'm the closer, so I'm coming in at 6 p.m. and I'm, I don't get out of there till 3 a.m. So or later. So it's definitely an interesting time for sure. But I think like my idea was with our humidor because Ryan mentioned the fact that, he has a lot of shops that are still open doing carry out like the Tinderbox is, and we're actually allowing people to come in at this point up to 5 people. If there's over 5 people that come in, we won't allow any more than that to be on premise. But we won't allow anybody to smoke cigars indoors or directly outside of the establishment.
We're the same way. We're the same way, obviously.
Yeah. So, we posted a sign today. I've posted about it on most of the local cigar papers here in Indiana. And there's even cigar shops out here that are actually, I don't know how they're doing it, but they're actually delivering cigars to people's houses, which is kind of cool.
Heard of that, and people have asked us about that, and I think that's depending on where you're at.
Right.
I think that is something that you're basically you're borderline speakeasy at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and it is a nice touch. I think it's really valuable. I think it shows. I think guests and customers of across the board of these different cigar shops will really appreciate that. I mean, to think that
a convenience in a troubling time.
Yeah,
what, Dustin.
What's that?
What'd you say, Dustin? I
said it's adding a convenience in a troubling time.
Yeah. I want to hear from Nate here in a second, but John Michael, what I see your facial expressions here. I feel like you have an opinion on this because again, I can see your facial expressions still.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what we're experiencing, in my opinion, are 2 waves, right? We are going to see the health of American citizens, that's the first wave, and the healthcare system potentially being overwhelmed. That's when you hear the flatten the curve, right? But the second wave will be as tremendous, if not greater, with the fallout of all this, which will not end at the time that we can finally go back to our normal lives.
No.
Right? It will be months and months afterwards. Whether that be with rising unemployment or people who have been displaced for so long and, the company's not having enough tucked away to hire those people back. And we're going to feel those effects for a long time. And that worries me. That worries me for my, whether it be my sister-in-law who works as a bartender at a restaurant here in Columbus. Right. For my friends who work in the service industry, or just the small mom and pop stores that if they can't make it during this time, they just shut their doors and never be able to reopen.
Well,
so
that's
the fallout.
The current treasurer, I mean, I read an article that he is estimating. Obviously, this is all estimation. It's a lot of theory out there, right? And that's what we're dealing with, even on the science side. I mean, if you listen between the lines, you look at that. Even the doctors that are at the top of this field, I mean, they're first to say that they're still figuring this out. I mean, that's it. Right. But I mean, the treasurer right now, he's estimated as high as a potential 20% unemployment rate, and he's not talking about right now. Now, obviously, right now. I mean, today in Ohio, they commented about I can't tell you the stats, but it was staggering of the requests for unemployment this week.
78,000.
78,000 and the normal, I think, or when they compared it to a previous number was like 6,500.
Yeah.
So I mean, like that's not what they're talking about, but overall 20%. I mean, so what I'm hoping to see, and again, not being an expert, this is just as a citizen of the United States, everything. I think what we're going to see is kind of a reversal of what's happening now of the step-by-step closures. I think that when we come out of this, I'm of the opinion that I was talking to a couple people about this, is that you're going to see businesses that have shut down, they'll start reopening, but they're going to still recommend keeping the mass gatherings down. You know what I mean? Like, because it's still going to be out there type thing. I think that's the curve that they're not really talking about, is that you're going to have the step-by-step going into this, and then you're going to have the step-by-step coming out of this. It's not just going to be like, all right, it's Tuesday, April or May, whatever, or June, whatever, and it's like, hey, by the way, everything's been lifted. I think we're going to creep back out of this.
But it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. Maybe I'm a little naive, but it's amazing to me that it doesn't like it. This main problem, I think, it starts with the banks. Like if there was a little bit of a leeway or give with banks, it wouldn't be such of a catastrophe at this moment.
I think you're just delaying the inevitable at that point.
Well, but no, I mean, you think about it, like, you know, if people are living, you know, most servers, I don't want to say, sorry, not most, but okay, say a lot of servers and a lot of people that live on hospitality and the service industry, they rely on tips, right? So, and their bills keep coming in. So if those bills aren't coming in, I'm not saying like a total forgiveness, you know, because I don't believe in that. People have heard my political standpoints on this podcast before, but I just think that, like, in this time of need, the country needs a little bit of giveaway from the banks. That doesn't mean, you know, a federal bailout for the entire United States for all the citizens. It means the banks giving a little. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Oh, they will. I mean, we're talking about already, obviously, the foreclosures are going to be delayed. You're going to have a lot of delays on a lot of things. There's going to be, that's the forgiveness. It's not necessarily going to be, we're going to forgive anything. It's basically, it's, you know, people, again, I mean, sending out money like they're talking about. I mean, it's kind of I don't want to call it a feel good thing, but I mean, you look at that, it's like.
It's money we don't have. It's
right. I mean, obviously, clearly, right. But I'm saying that there's that point where, and I don't want to get fully political, but people. I mean, again, like you get a check for whatever they're saying. Simple math. They're saying, oh, you know, $1,000 is like, well, there's $1,000 more I can spend on ammo. You know?
Yeah. I mean,
and then they're back to square one. You're like, I'm better now because I just bought, you know, a bunch of rounds. And you're like, but about that food thing, and they're like, yeah, I'll be fine.
Yeah, people are stupid. They don't understand. Like they look at money as like a handout. That's why I'm not saying a handout. But if there was a break on banks and interest loans, or I mean, hell, I will say a forgiveness. Like if there was a forgiveness for this certain period of time that we're in, I'm just not educated enough in the money sector to understand that. But why can't the banks do that?
I think you will see some of that, right? Whether they be through the Small Business Administration or through larger financial institutions, but there will be, you know, there'll just be simple band-aid approaches, right?
Yeah.
There'll be kind of like the Fed dropping the rates to 0% interest. You know, it was a tiny band-aid approach that's not going to really
very scary too, in my opinion.
You're gonna,
it's very scary.
Essentially, you're gonna have to, because you know there was an article that I read that was really interesting, basically going on the idea that all of these major companies have actually forgot or basically went back on a simple principle that they all promised they
I don't care, Bobby. I just don't care.
Easy.
What
Go ahead, Ryan.
I would say is, if you're looking at something like the airlines are saying, hey, if this doesn't change, we're probably going to be out of money by the end of June. But if you go back to like after 9/11, all of these major companies basically vowed saying, hey, this will never happen to us again. We're going to make sure that we have money available to us. We're going to be able to weather all hiccups. And, you know, you look at, we talk about fiscal responsibilities of us as individuals. And you look at, if the average American can't figure out how to balance their budgets and to prepare for something like this, imagine these big companies that can't do that. And if they can't do it, how are you expecting anybody on you know?
I get that part. I think that, and Nate, if you want to chime in, or anyone else wants to chime in, I will say this is that all of these things that are happening, everyone's talking about, on the comments, is like, you steer clear of certain things. You don't want to do the stimulus. The fact of the matter is that when we talk about rolling with it, I think that this is something that it's going to be bad. I think that's the biggest part about rolling with it for me, is that there are going to be companies that, unfortunately, based on the way that we're handling this, better or worse, but the worst part is that unfortunately some businesses will have to close. Unfortunately, people will lose their jobs. This is not going to be an easy road. And for me, that's where I look at this topic, where it's rolling with it is not necessarily making everything better. But a lot of these decisions to the everyday person, and the six of us, everyone else, I think, listening out there, it's going to be bad. If this didn't happen, 2020 would have been awesome. But when it comes to it, whether you give stimulus packages, whether you give, I don't want to call them handouts, but whether you do that, like, it's going to happen. Like, it's going to take time. This is a major crisis. Whether or not people, if you have the opinion that things are being overblown, people are overreacting, no matter what it is, like, whatever your opinion is, if you think everything, I trust the government, whatever it is, the bottom line is, for me, is that I think we're all in this together. And people say that, but when it comes down to it, I truly believe that it's going to be an ugly 2020. And once we get past this, and I will say, again, not being an expert, and you guys can disagree, you can never listen to this podcast again if you don't want to, but I will say this, is that doing stuff like what we're doing is undervalued. This is talking to people. It's getting to know your neighbor, not turning against each other, not pointing fingers, not locking yourself up in your home and protecting. I mean, you have to have a level of that, but I really don't want to see that selfish nature among people, especially people that you care about, because that'll happen. I mean, you have to take care of yourself, but at the same time, it's just gonna be bad. It already is, and I think the sooner that we accept that, the faster that you can roll with it.
But I think people are already accepting that.
Not
like
everyone.
Well, not the kids down in Daytona Beach that are just having a good old time. No,
but I think talking about, like, even like doing the stimulus packages, doing all this stuff, and
but it's
on
not
the flip side of that,
package. It's like a stimulus package. You're talking about, like, no, like Bobby, like, he's talking about, like, I know you're not attacking me, but, like, you just come out with, like, random comments and want to act all sweet and then think that I'm gonna ban you. Like, I'm not going to pay attention to what Bobby has to say because he just comes up with stupid comments, and now he wants to add a validated comment and try to talk to me, and that's not going to happen. So,
all right, well, you're addressing it now, clearly. So what do you think?
But besides that, it's not a stimulus package. It's not a bailout. It's the banks saying the banks are closing their doors for a second and saying, I'm not going to ask this amount of money from people. Like, there's no interest rates. There's no issue or backlash against people that can't pay anything. Yes, I understand that people take advantage of it, but are you going to select those very few that are going to take advantage of it for the greater whole? Like, why would you do that? Why would you, like, I just don't understand. Like, okay, so if we ask a question here, a personal question, and say, who's all actually having money come in? I know I am. So I can't say I know what it feels like to be someone like Liz or one of my employees at Burn and say, because I'm not freaking out. I'm okay right now.
Right.
I have a paycheck coming in. But to the people that live day to day, I mean, yeah, there's an argument to be said that now people will understand on how to, figure out how to use their money a little smarter. Well, fine. Like, you're just being an ass at that point and trying to prove a point. It's not about that. Like, people will lose their livelihoods over this, and it will get bad. You're completely right, Steve. I just think that I think that there should be a little leeway from the banks. I'm not asking anything from the government because that's
All right.
not the government.
All right, so I'll say this, and we have like a Joseph. Things are stressful enough to change the topic. I don't want to necessarily change this topic, but I will steer it this way. What are you guys doing? Hang on. What are you guys doing to roll with it? Like, I'm not saying like sunshine and rainbows. I'm saying, how are you dealing with it? How do we go through it? Like, we're not gonna on this podcast. It's like Trump's not listening. Might be. I don't know. He's on Twitter a lot, but you got none of the political leaders are listening to this. But it's like obviously we're all dealing with this, and that's where it is. Roll with it. So. I would love to say that they're not going to affect the cigar shop, and we can do business as usual. We can do carry out for the next 2 months and roll with it, and we minimize the losses. But what are you guys doing? How are you handling this? We're not going to figure it out between the six of us and everyone out there listening. But how are you guys dealing with it on a day-to-day basis? In a sense, like in a positive way. For the fact that Joseph's asking about this. Then he just says, "I'm going to rob you fuckers once my humidor runs low." So obviously, everyone affects by this, But what are you doing on a day-to-day basis to make the best of what we're dealing with? There's got to be something. When Liz and I'll start it off. Liz and I have gotten in several arguments about this because everyone's anxiety level, everyone's at high, no matter if you're normally calm or whatever. Also, Ryan, I think you're getting robbed in the background.
No, I'm not getting robbed right now. That's actually
proprietor of
the establishment. He showed up. So,
John Michael, what do you got?
Yeah, so I got to run. Apologize, my phone's dying. So it's got like 2% battery.
We need to get you a battery pack.
Good seeing you, John.
Yeah, seriously, I know.
Good seeing you, John.
It's great seeing everyone. But let me just say this in closing. There's going to be a lot of people affected by this. Support local businesses like Tinderbox at Easton and like Burn and Alec Bradley cigars, and don't be cruel to the people like Dustin and those people who are trying to keep the grocery stores shelves stocked. Everyone right now is doing the absolute best that they can. So this can be the time to show some empathy and some kindness because we're all dealing with this our own way. And we will make through. We will, and there will be fallout from it. But just in the meantime, just try to be kind to one another, and we'll make it through it.
I appreciate that. It's a good way to look at it because obviously there's going to be a survival side of it.
Great seeing everyone.
John Michael, thanks for joining us. And again, we hope to have you back on actually in the garage in the near future, and we can get back to the normal format.
Get on this if I can get you in.
All right, John Michael, thank you.
Talking about coronavirus.
Ryan's trying to invite people in a cigar shop. Everyone else, Nate, you've been quiet here. We've got him on the feed the whole time. I got to ask, again, let's try to turn a little positive. But how are you handling this? Because I know that your hours have been completely cut on your second job here, and you're still working at your other primary, income. But you guys, you and Jess, you got to that point where this was just one of those moments where you just picked up a whole lot more hours. So you're working more, but you had more income coming through, and real quickly that was taken away from you guys. So staying positive and rolling with it. What are we doing?
Well, thankfully for me and Jess, my income working at the Tinderbox was all supplemental.
Yeah.
I still am able to work from home and do my job. Jess is able to work from home and do her job. So the two of us still have our primary incomes coming in.
It's good.
So we're not really taking a hit on that. Me working all the hours I was at the Tinderbox was just extra. On top of that, Jess and I have enough saved up to where we have anywhere between 3 to 6 months of expenses saved. So if something were to happen, we still have the ability to get by. We still have money to buy food. We still have money to pay our rent, even though we actually found out our landlord sent out a message today to all their tenants that anyone who is going through this, someone who works in the restaurant industry or someone who's been affected by this, they actually said, you're always going to have a home with us. We understand what's going on. We're not going to evict you guys. We're not going to kick you guys out because you were affected by this. But thankfully, the wife and I are in a position to where this doesn't affect us a great deal because we're still able to work from home. We still have our primary incomes. We have enough saved up to where we can put gas in the car. We can pay our insurance.
That's good.
We can buy food. We can do all the stuff that we need to take care of ourselves until all this corrects itself, until everything returns back to a fairly normal state. And part of that's just the planning that the two of us have done. So it's been an adjustment, but it hasn't been much of an inconvenience. When Brian actually texted me the other day that the hours at Tinderbox were changing for the next couple of weeks, which completely takes away my hours because I work my day job and then I work the night shift at Tinderbox. With the hour change, that takes away my hours. I actually told him, I was like, there are other people that work at the Tinderbox that need those hours more than I do.
Right.
I'm gonna get by. I'm gonna be okay. There are other people, such as Todd or Ron, that need that more than I do. So if something happens to where there are hours open, say it's just on the weekend to clean up or something, like give it to those guys. If Todd wants my Saturday, Todd can have my Saturday.
Yeah.
Because he needs it more than I do. Because he's actually made that known to other people, and I'm completely fine with that. So it hasn't been much of an inconvenience for me. I stay at home more, and I guess the bad thing about staying at home more is I tend to drink more.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and we've all noticed that, and I also encourage that behavior. Also, I don't know how you're going to adjust on the outside of this. You know what I mean? Like, you won't be able to drink in the office.
I'll be fine. Trust me.
All right. No, but I will say that what I like about that is that, that is exactly what, in a sense, not necessarily what I was looking for. Nice cork pop, but I like hearing that. I think that is the mentality that more people need. But I mean, again, I don't blame anyone. I don't hold any ill will to the people that are, in a sense, being selfish. It is a survival mode. No one knows what's coming.
Well,
but I like what you're saying. There are people. I think that attitude that you have, Nate, is that there are people in worse situations that are losing all of their income, and unemployment is a good thing, obviously, but it's not going to cover it. So I mean, I'm not making light of the situation. I literally told Liz, I said, the one nice thing about all this, or not necessarily nice thing, but it's like in our lifestyle, once a week or whatever, we try to go out to like one of our favorite restaurants, and every time we go in there, we spend $60. Well, I mean, that's not happening right now. So some of our frivolous expenses, and it's kind of it's ironic because a lot of it is like going out to restaurants or bars where she makes her living, but at the same time, not only is she getting hit by that, but the people that we used to support by going out and enjoying ourselves and spending some of our extra income, they're getting hit by that, and it's kind of full circle, right? I mean, it's something that we're not living beyond our means, but at a certain level, our extra income that we were spending before has been taken away, but also her income has been hit. So in our situation, it's ironic, but it's the fact of the matter. So that is some of those things that's where I said things are getting bad. And for some people, I think that there are, in the cigar and the bourbon industry that we're really focused on as far as who listens to this podcast a lot. Stop buying bottles of bourbon if you can. And for those of you that can and you're still working, support the industries that you actually love. Yeah, they're going to take a hit, but if you don't need to really like close up your pocketbooks because you're still working, get out there and support who you can. I mean, like, John said that before he logged off, and I think that's very, very important. I mean, it's not about necessarily just surviving, but the people that actually have the income that are still rolling in. I think that you guys should, to a point, maybe you have to limit it a little bit, but get back out there and buy cigars while you can, buy the bourbon you can, get the carry out. And Kylie said it when we were all getting together on Monday night. I like the point where if you're doing it, you're doing delivery through like Uber Eats. Those people need to eat too. But if you like the restaurants you frequent, or you like the staff, you're regular, I think that's something that you should go get in your car and carry out. You know what I mean? As you can, and then tip the servers. I mean, it's not about selecting, but it's just about supporting people the best you can.
I think that there's a few schools of thought here, and one of the ones that I always talk about is, if you're in the position to help others, help others.
Yeah.
If you're in the position to help yourself, help yourself. And if you're in the position where you need help, speak up. And what's important here, I think, is the middle one. If you're in the position to help yourself, help yourself. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying go out and grab all the toilet paper, go out and hoard all this stuff for yourself. What I'm saying is sometimes the best thing that you can do is to take yourself off of somebody else's plate. And I think in the scenario that we're in right now, if you're in that position where, like you said, you like bourbon, you like cigars, if you're in the position to buy bourbon and cigars right now, that's awesome. If you're not, make sure you're feeding yourself, make sure you got clean water, make sure you got a place to live. That's what your focus should be. And at the end of the day, it might not seem like you're out there supporting local business and whatever, but no one's supporting you right now either.
Right.
And
right.
there is a value to that. There's a high value to that.
I think
I like what Jody Jack said. I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but if we do get this 1K payment, whatever it is from the government, the stimulus package, I challenge those who do not actually need it to donate to those that do. I have friends that have closed their businesses and lost jobs, and they have nothing coming in. I know exactly where mine would go. I like that mentality. I think this is something that, again, no one's talking about. So if that does happen, and if you don't need it necessarily, don't necessarily treat it like toilet paper and hoard it. If you've got it, it's not going to go on forever. And I like Jody. That's an amazing takeaway that I'm going to get from this conversation, is that if you don't need it, to your point, Ryan, if you need it, hold on to it and use it sparingly. But if you don't need it and you're sitting on like Ryan Bax was saying that he's not the best person to talk about this because he was an early retirement person. You are actually, you're in this with all of us as well. So that's where it's, if you don't need it, don't necessarily hold on to it. Either go to a charity, a food bank, or if you know people that lost their jobs, I'm not saying necessarily give a handout, but I mean, this is something that we all have an opportunity to be in this together. That's when I talk about rolling with it. It's easy to go to the negative. It's easy to go to that survival mode. The fact that there's no ammo out there, there's no toilet paper, there's no food out there, it's going to keep coming back. It's going to as long as they can keep providing it, it's going to keep coming.
100%.
So take care of yourself, but don't go to the extreme. And the best that you can, and I will say this, and I saw someone comment, I think it might have been Bobby, that said that, pay it forward. Take care of yourself first. So I compare this to, and I'll leave this and I'll go to you guys for closing remarks. Bobby says, or donate to the podcast. I'm not going to hate that, but I will say this. This is where I look at this is it's like on the airlines, right? Which is going to be a suffering industry. But I will say this as the metaphor that I hope that people can take away from this is that when they're going through the pamphlet on every flight you've ever been on, what do they say? If we need to drop those oxygen masks, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to secure yours first before taking care of others. And I think that is a great metaphor. And that's what I'll leave before you guys say your things. And I'll tell my, the reminder of the sponsors, but take care of yourself first, secure that mask before you secure others, because you can't help other people if you're not helping yourself, but obviously within reason. It's like, don't put on your mask and then just shove that person aside or that child aside or that elderly person and be like, no, if anyone's surviving this plane crash, it's going to be me. It's you take care of yourself, put that mask on, and then put everyone else's on. That's the best thing I can do. That's not necessarily everyone needs to, if you put other people's masks on first, you're jeopardizing everything, because you need to be able to take care of yourself and then take care of everyone else. Don't be selfish.
It goes back to like when I was, in EMT training. One of the big things that they always reiterate is the last thing we need is you to become a patient yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much, basically, if there's anything that I would like anybody to take away, even like I said before, if you're in a position where you need help, ask for help. I'd much rather my neighbor come to me and say, hey, I need something to eat, than catch them downstairs in my pantry when I get home from work.
Right.
And that's only going to end poorly for one person on that one. But,
That's fair.
Nate woke up from the drink.
All right, Dustin, give me your closing remarks, please.
So, I mean, closing it off, I think a point we touched on briefly, we talked a lot about the financial struggles that, people are going through right now, but the emotional struggles, I think, are even more so, just as much a factor. It's a double-edged sword, but, I'm thankful that I am still working. It kind of sucks that, I'm mandated 6 days a week with how busy it is. But on the flip side, personal life, we've got, yesterday was Cadence's birthday. The place that we were going to have her party at closed.
Right.
So, we had to call an audible, and, we're going to have some people over Saturday for it. Just to kind of help her celebrate. She's got a couple friends coming over. So, it's more for her than anyone.
Sure.
We're taking precautionary measures, obviously sanitizing the whole house. But also just informing people, if you don't feel well, don't come. We would much rather be able to see you down the road than, put everyone at risk. And then on the flip side of it, a lot of you guys know, I'm supposed to be getting married in 2 months. That's the other big thing that's really been stressing both, Kathy and I, and have us both anxious, aside from me going and being around 2,000-3,000 people a day, is, what's going to become of that. So it's been a lot of difficult conversations, a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And, it's not so much of everything going on. It's just the unknown of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that plays the biggest role for everyone. But, moving forward, I think biggest thing is support everyone local, be kind to everyone who's in the stores. We're trying as best we can to restock everything so people can get the things that they need. More importantly, if you see those people who are in the age range who are the most at risk, help them out. If there's 4 cans of beans left, don't take all 4. If you see, another elderly customer who's, eyeing those same 4 cans, just help one another out, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing and trying to move forward. Steve, your comment about the oxygen mask on an airplane, it's very huge. I think those who have families, you need to not only look out for yourself, but look out for everyone who's in your house. So
I like that.
Being someone who, I live with the two loves of my life who both have, weaker immune systems, and me going to work day in, day out to help give others those groceries and things they need, but also being exposed to all of that, it's a concern that's constantly on my mind.
Yeah.
And then coming home and, just not knowing. So it's a constant struggle, and, all I can do is keep a positive mindset and, try to be that rock for, everyone else in my family, both who live here and, everyone else.
No, I love that. And it's good to hear from someone in that industry, because I don't think that people are hearing from the frontline people a whole lot. You hear from the CEOs, you hear from obviously politicians. And I will say one of my takeaways from this podcast with you, Dustin, being on it, is that it's nice to hear that from someone that is in the front line as far as like doing the grocery store thing, and that the trucks are still coming in at this point. You know, you guys are still restocking. You know, we hope that it doesn't get to that point where that shuts down. And I don't see a reason, based on the information that all the politicians and the scientists and the doctors are doing at this point, the statistics and everything else. Obviously, numbers will go up the more tests that go out there. But, you know, as long as that supply chain is happening, hopefully that part levels out. And it sounds like you guys are staying very, very vigilant on that, and I appreciate that. Jake, what do you got? Closing remarks.
It just seemed like earlier, like everybody got irritated that I was talking about like the real shit, and I thought that
not at all.
This is what like the main podcast was supposed to be about.
It is.
So, I mean, I'm not going to add on anything what I was saying earlier because obviously it didn't get a good response. But
you responded to one person that was on the comments. So, like, what do you think? You know,
but everybody just wanted to say like, oh, well, it got serious, but this shit is serious.
Absolutely.
Like, we're talking about like people's livelihoods, and I think it needs to be discussed.
But this is your opportunity. Absolutely.
This is what I'll say. So, like, moving forward and going and rolling with it. So, like, I'm blessed that Rocky decided to have all of his management team still on staff. So, I mean, that's amazing for him, you know, because not everyone does that, if any.
Absolutely.
But what we are doing, I think, like at the beginning, what I said is that it allowed our location to kind of give a little bit more back to the establishment. So I'm kind of grateful for this downtime. So, like, we got a lot of stuff accomplished today, and we'll get a lot of stuff accomplished within the next 2 weeks, or whether it be 4 weeks, you know, or even further.
You're trying to better the business in this time, make the best of a situation, correct?
Yeah. So, however, I'll say that what I've tried to do is a part of my humidor attendance and being their manager. What I've tried to do is because we're not going to, I want to bring in my full-time guys and just have them in there.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't believe that we'll have the sales to accompany that. So if that's just me just standing there and getting other stuff done until someone comes in and wants to buy some cigars, or have someone call in and want to buy a box or something, then that's great. But I do feel for my employees in the humidor because I don't really, you know, they don't have anything coming in.
Yeah.
But what I've made it a point is if we do have people come in, and what I'm going to do is that if we have someone come in and they leave tips, I'm throughout this period of time when we don't have humidor attendants staffed, I'm going to collectively keep all of those tips and then disperse them among the humidor attendants at the end of all this.
That's amazing.
I'm not going to keep that money. I could, because it's mine.
Right.
But at the beginning, like what I said this will dictate management. This will show the true colors of management and the company's willingness to care about their employees and whether they want to back them or not. Whether the company can or not is another question, but if they can, then great. However, I don't really know. I don't have that answer. But what I'm going to do and what I can control is the fact is if I get tips when I'm working, then I'm going to disperse them down the line.
Yeah.
So I think when you're talking about like rolling with it and rolling through the punches and every other, you know, hoorah, you know, motivational quote you can think of, I think it really starts with what are you actually going to do instead of just talking about it and talking about the good graces and the happiness. What are you actually going to do?
No, I think that's good. Joseph says that's awesome. Nice to see you helping your employees. There's a lot of positive out there. I think this, to your point, I think that's is, you know, when in my words would be what you're doing is yeah, there's going to be some businesses that fold, and there are going to be some small businesses that really have to. It's not being selfish, but again, there's a greater good there. But in your situation, I think it absolutely, and a lot of people's situations, this is a point that you see the level of leadership that you have, And if you have to make that sacrifice, unfortunately, that you have to lay off people or you have to take a step back to make the business survive or make your household survive, you can do that. But to your words, Jake, I great takeaway for me, because when it comes down to it, it's you're doing, you're not just doing fine, but it's like you're surviving as well. But you also look at the bigger, greater good, which is a good sign of a leader, that you are going to try to take care of the people that rely on you and the business the best you can. And it's not going to be ideal. That's where I was saying earlier that the things are going to get bad. Things are bad. But when you deal with that, you can do what you can. But again, putting that mask on yourself first, then at that point you can put the mask on other people the best you can.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with what you can control.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that people lose touch of that when we talk about all of this.
Absolutely.
They think that they can control what's going on, or they want to make it political in a stance and saying, well, the current administration should do this, or the administration that will be in office next year, or whatever have you. They want to make a point to undermine someone else in this time of need. And I and to your point, Steve, I think it's bullshit. And that if we stand together and band together, then that's what really matters. But
I like that. Doug Ruffalo actually commented here, saying he's trying to get in touch with our regular waitress at Cracker Barrel to give her a Kroger gift card to help her out, divorced with 3 kids. I think that's something where it's like, this is the first time that, Doug, be a Facebook stalker. Like, it's a time where you can do background, like do a Google search on that person's name. If you know their first and last name, go on Facebook, try to find their profile pic, and then slide into their DMs and be like, hey, not to be creepy, my wife and I want to try to send you a gift card. Please respond.
I can just see his big face, just with a cigar in his mouth, taking a picture in his garage.
Yeah. Yeah, all grumpy. Nate, you have a closing remark here, and then I'm gonna close it out with sponsors.
Well, I think with what's going on, it's shown us individually a lot of what type of person we are and where we stand when something like this happens. Some of us are in a position to where we're able to take care of ourselves. Some people are not so fortunate when it comes to something like this. So I think it's important to understand that there is a community aspect when something like this happens, that without it being forced upon us, like if we are in a position to where we are able to help other people out in these times, then we should feel a responsibility ourselves to do that without it being forced upon us. So like I said earlier, my wife and I are in a position to where we can cover what we need to cover, but it would be nice if we're able to help others out, whether that means ordering food from a local restaurant like we did the other day for lunch, so that way they're getting business, whether it's going to local cigar shops, that way they're still getting business, whatever it is. If you're in a position to be able to help others, the first thing is that means that you have put yourself in a position to where you've been able to take care of yourself already. Kind of like what you alluded to with the oxygen mask coming down. You've already put yourself in a position to where you can handle this type of situation.
Right.
But I think it also highlights some people have not been fortunate enough, maybe on their own accord or because of circumstances outside of control. There are some people that have not been fortunate enough to be able to take care of themselves when something like this has happened.
Right.
So I think it's nice in terms of a wake-up call to be like, holy cow, if something like this happens, I have to have something to fall back on, whether it's savings, whether it's food, water, whatever it is, so that way your entire life is not ruined by something like this that is hopefully just a short-term issue. Hopefully it causes people to realize the need to be in a position to where something like this does not affect them as much as it has other people. So either be thankful for what you are able to do, realize what you need to be able to do in the future, but if you're fortunate, be able to help those who are not as fortunate as you.
Absolutely.
Good words, Nate.
That's very, very powerful.
Mind, I just want to throw.
Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Quick. Just to sort of address the grand scheme of like this podcast tonight and some of the comments we got and stuff like that. Regardless of your feelings of the guy or the program or anything like that, whenever the Daily Show with Stephen Colbert was coming, or I'm sorry, the Stephen Colbert Show on Comedy Central, when it was coming to an end, and they asked Stephen Colbert, what do you think was like the greatest moment during the show?
Yeah.
And I believe he said the 2004 election. And he said, I believe that was the one with like the whole hanging Chad thing and all that kind of stuff. And he said, it was such a crazy point of conversation, the election as it was. And then just when they thought it hit the climax of anything that had probably ever happened that we could remember, the whole hanging Chad thing just let it keep going.
Right.
And I think this podcast tonight is sort of like that in the sense that, I admittedly don't watch every Bourbon and BS podcast. I do support you guys. I love what you're doing. I'm glad to see you.
We can fix that. We can fix that.
The running joke is always, I hate doing podcasts. You asked me today, and without hesitation, I said I was.
And you're great at it. I don't understand.
You're absolutely terrible. I'm going to disagree with Jake always. I think you're terrible at it.
You're great at talking to people. You're great at, you make great points. You're very intellectual. I always like
Jake, I don't think your girlfriend will like you talking to me like this, but I appreciate it. But,
Jesus, how much
what I'm getting at is this particular podcast, episode 110, roll with it. We could literally be doing this podcast for 24 hours straight.
Yeah. I'm going to end the broadcast.
We could not exhaust anything that we have to talk about. I think everybody has feelings about this. Everybody has opinions. Everybody has thoughts. We're definitely going to get. Everybody has something to add to it. And the big thing is, the idea of roll with it and sort of being together is being open-minded and sort of, feeling this all together, because there's nobody in the comments. There's nobody on your screen right now in these pictures that has really any idea what is going to happen. There are people that get paid lots of money that have very, very dense backgrounds in their professions and studies that really are probably just as uncertain as we are.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, this is an every man's podcast. This is what people like to listen to other people and just hear different points of views and open their mind up a little bit, whether through smoke or drinking. And I think everybody just needs to remember that's what we're here for, is just to open up that dialogue and have these conversations with people here.
Dude, thank you for that. I mean, this is why we did this tonight. I mean, this is, Monday night we did a trial run on this format. This is something that, we've been kicking around as a team, as far as, doing this where we can get remote guests in. But when it comes down to it, I mean, this is something that, show must go on the best we can. I mean, this is best we can. And I think that, Ryan, you say it very, very well. And again, I actually will agree with Jake. I was kidding. Like, you being on the podcast, it's always nice because, you may not like doing it. I mean, just like people don't like public speaking, but when there's someone that has a natural talent to be able to talk to people on a day-to-day basis, on a one-to-one basis, and then if you do this, I think that the big takeaway for me on this is that, we're 2.5 hours into this podcast, and, Jake, I don't want you to feel like, there were people saying that you're going negative. I think this is something that I wasn't trying to steer it back to a positive. I'm not trying to steer this conversation.
We were just talking about economics. We didn't even get into whether or not this is real, how the science. We could have did this forever. Is what I'm saying. Is there's just so much material here. There's so much to discuss.
Yeah. But
it
my
went
point
right.
is that you can just like anything else in life, you can bitch, you can complain, you can disagree, you can not be happy with it. But as soon as you get past that, then it's a matter of that's where the roll with it comes into play, where how do we deal with what's happening and how do we support each other, whether it's someone in your own household, the people you interact with at the grocery store where Dustin's at, people that you're trying to support small businesses. I think that there's a lot of positives that can come out of this. You talk about the paycheck to paycheck people. Let's walk out of this hopefully where you change some things. We learn from experiences. You learn your weaknesses and you grow from those. I mean, I always point. I mean, I am the one that is absolutely, and this is very, very light for a lot of people, but people that are in the same boat as me, when they close down gyms, I mean, I don't want to get unhealthy. I don't want that point where now all of a sudden I make a change in life where I can't do what I'm doing to try to make myself a stronger physical person with nutrition and everything else, so that if this type of stuff happens, hopefully I am at little at risk as I can be. And you take away those types of things, it's going to be something that I hope people actually learn from this, whether it be financially, physically, health-wise, family-wise, taking care of other people. That's where I wanted to steer this conversation. So to you, Jake, that I appreciate you coming on. You weren't getting negative only like that, and I understand what you're saying. I'm looking at it as take those points, and I want us as a group to literally. Sometimes it does take sitting down and having a cigar, having a whiskey, and talking through all that stuff, so you can. Not you, Jake, but everyone can vent. I had a lot of text messages. I had a lot of messages. I had a lot of comments that people are saying stuff. And then at the very end of the conversation, it's like, dude, I'm just venting. We're going to get through this. And thank you, Ryan, for saying those kind words about this podcast. I appreciate all you guys being a part of this. I think that, we're going to get through this. The fortunate part about all this stuff is that it's not an incredible high fatality rate. I think we're getting through this to try to help people, and I don't want to lose focus on that. I think this is something where this is an opportunity for us to all really, really support ourselves first. And I said that, and I appreciate you guys latching on to that metaphor, because when you talk about things, like I didn't have that whole mask thing on the airplane planned before this. This is just through our conversation. This is through learning from you guys and learning from the community out there with the comments, is that we talk about these things. This is when we sort things out, and we don't have the answers, but this is a point that we can support each other and actually grow through this and survive in a positive way, as opposed to turning people away or locking our doors and doing all the things that are dangerously possibly going to happen.
Yeah.
So guys, I want to thank our sponsors. I really appreciate this. This is an obvious topic going into this week. This was not planned. This is an obvious topic. This is a hot button topic.
Answer this, Steve, because I'm curious. So why tonight did we do this remote thing? Was it because of what has been said about Ohio? Like why?
So
do it remote? No, I'm just curious.
So this is an idea that we've been kicking around, just doing this technology so that we can have people, we can do the main feed will be what we've been used to, but we can open up our guests to people that are not necessarily in Columbus. I still want to have people in the garage.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have been there.
No, I know. But so with the fact that Nate and Dustin aren't here.
No hotels.
Yeah.
Nate and Dustin aren't here. Sean, who's been in the audience, Sean Wilkinson, who was a previous guest, he wanted to come over because he's jonesing for a cigar, right? And he can't smoke at his house, and he's in the same neighborhood. But the way I look at this is that, Doug just says this right now, is social distancing at its best. I think this is a way for us to be a community and do this. And I took my temperature, like I said, for the first time today. And now that we have a thermometer in the house, which I couldn't get off of Amazon at this point, you can't find them anywhere, just like toilet paper. So I'm going to do my best to play with the rules. And tomorrow morning when I wake up, before I go into the shop, I'm going to use the thermometer. I'm going to take my temperature, and I want to make sure that I'm healthy, so that if we're having personal interaction, if I have people in the garage, I'm looking after Liz and everyone else that she's going to see too. Where, at this point, I'm the person that normally will have anywhere between 5 and a dozen people in my house once a week, which is very uncommon for a lot of people. But when it comes down to it, I think everyone's healthy. But I think that I could have people over in the garage, but now it's a matter of, we did this tonight. I think it was a great podcast. I appreciate all you guys, and I appreciate the whole community listening to this. And I hope that it comes across well as we sort through the technology of putting it on audio. But when this comes back to the normalcy of everyday life, hopefully this is not the new norm. I hope that we can get to the point where now we've opened up a new avenue for us to have guests all over the world and invite them into the garage. But why do we do it tonight? It's because that I have respect for Liz and everyone else that's affected by her and I on an everyday basis. And while I'm still working in public right now, I want to make sure that I can still provide for our household. And I want to make sure that no one's got ill intentions. Anyone that's going to come over to the garage tonight to be a part of this podcast, no one has ill intentions. But it's just the fact of the matter. This is where we're at, and I'm going to try to respect everyone and their health the best I can. I handled cash today. I handled credit cards today. I saw people, firsthand within, the 6 foot thing. So when I came home and like I said earlier, that when Liz she said I have a thermometer, I was nervous because I feel fine. But if I had a high temperature and I was running a fever, now I have to make a change. Like I have to let my boss know, let everyone know that I have to stay in the house because I have 103 temperature. Luckily I had a 97.5. And, that's why my hands are always cold. And apparently my body is actually going the other way just to battle it.
Yeah.
Liz was not 98.6. She was 98.8. And she's like, I think I'm good. I'm like, you're fine.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to add to this point is like our rules of our humidor today that got passed down was that so every person that comes into the humidor can't touch a product.
Right.
And every humidor tenant has to put on a change of gloves, and the guest has to point at the product so that, and then the employee grabs it, and then once they're done with the transaction, they have to grab another pair of gloves for the next guest, which is,
We haven't done gloves yet. We haven't done that. We have hand sanitizer. I'm washing my hands I always wash my hands a lot, but we had one gentleman that came in today that it was like, I even told Brian, we were the only 2 in the shop, and I was like, of course, that guy like seemed sick. You know what I mean? I've never seen the guy before in my life, and he bought Davidoffs and everything else, and I'm just like watching everything he touched. There's a scene in Cheers that when the guy's talking, if you go to Netflix and you select Cheers, you don't click on it. But you guys, I encourage you guys to do this. This is very relevant. Nate knows what I'm talking about. He's nodding. That this guy's talking about like this contagious thing and all that stuff. And they're like, you know what? I think everything's going to be fine. The guy's like, you know what? Thanks for talking to me, guys. I feel a lot better already. He leaves Cheers, and all of a sudden they're like throwing like sprays and all this stuff. They're spraying on the payphone. That's the way I felt when this guy left, and we absolutely did clean a little bit more. So. I think that some of these people have been talking about the fact that when we come out of this is that take care of yourself. The fact that the government had to tell you to fucking wash your hands after going to the bathroom. These are things that my mom told me when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I think we can learn a lot from this, not only financially, but also wash your fucking hands. So
wait, you don't touch your face after you take a shit?
No.
You rub your eyes.
I guess I'm doing it wrong.
Well, somebody did comment. They thought I was in my bathroom. Apparently, that's where I keep all my my etched glass Alec Bradleys in my personal bathroom. I did this podcast while dropping a hot one.
That's your bathroom in the west wing of your house. All right, guys, I'm gonna end this. What I will say that I'm going to see how this goes. If you guys are hanging out, if anyone's interested in hanging out for a drink or anything like that, or a smoke afterwards, we're going to end the broadcast, and I'm going to see if we can continue this. If anyone wants to do the after party in the garage remotely. If not, I understand. I'll drink alone and go inside. But guys, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I got to go.
Cheers.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Steve. Cheers.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
Guys, cheers. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday.